The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night, all day.
Well, Governor Perry, thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure and honor to meet you. And Brian, would you explain your relationship and how you guys know each other? And
I had a public service career in the state of Kentucky, and the last stint of it involved my role as the chairman and executive director of the Kentucky Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission. Within that role, I designed for what, by lack of a better term, was the Kentucky Ibogaine Initiative. The state had received $842 million in settlements that will be paid out over the next 15 years by opioid distributors and manufacturers for their role in the creation and perpetuation of the opioid epidemic. And as the Kentucky Ibogaine Project was developed and executed, I was introduced to Governor Perry as someone who was a believer and advocate in the medicine. He and I developed a professional relationship. He was a vocal supporter and participant in the initiative itself. He appeared by video to give a testimonial about the immense potential around the development of Ibogaine. And he also was so wonderfully helpful as to procure an op-ed in Newsweek magazine in October of last year endorsing the initiative. He has been a tremendous supporter, mentor, and I am privileged to call him my friend.
And Governor, how did you get involved in this?
It's kind of a long story, so we got the time. If you don't mind,
Sure.
I'll just
Yeah,
take you
plenty of
back.
time.
2006, my wife made me go on vacation, which I don't necessarily do very good because I have a little bit of ADHD, and vacations are sitting on the beach someplace. It's not high on my list of good things to do. But anyway, I went with her, and she took me to Coronado Island and the Hotel Del, which was a fascinatingly interesting place. But my security detail went out early, and they were stopped there, I think, on Orange and Orange Drive, the little breakfast nook, and they walked in where they were supposed to meet the California Highway Patrol to do our advance. And there was this big guy, looked about like you, all buff and slicked off head and pretty healthy looking boy, and they thought that was the patrolman they were supposed to meet. They went over, introduced themselves, and said, "Are you here to meet Governor Perry?" And the guy went, "No, but I vote for him every chance I get." And this kid happened to be a JTAC with SEAL Team 5, who was a former, or was an F-18 driver who was assigned to SEAL Team 5 to go out on their next assignment. And they just met him by the grace of God. And the kid gave him his card and said, "Hey, if the governor would like to go on a tour of the Special Warfare Center, I'd love to give him a tour." Well, the detail shows up next day, says, "Hey, we met this kid." And that's right down my alley, right? Rather than sitting on the beach, take me over and show me what the Special Warfare Center does. And on Saturday morning, we went over, got that tour, and this young man led the tour. And he had a big old tall drink of water with him in his camis and that assisted with the tour. Took about 3 hours to finish this tour. We finish it, and this young man says, "Did Marcus tell you where he was last weekend?" I said, "No." He said, "Yes, sir, once, and no, sir, once." He said, "Well, he was at the White House receiving the Navy Cross." Well, I know what the Navy Cross is, and I went back to the hotel room, looked it up on my computer. There's no mention of this Marcus Luttrell anywhere on my computer. And we had asked them to go have dinner with us that night, just to say thank you for their time and what have you. And that evening, as we get back to the restaurant, friend is asking him all questions about what was it that he did. And during the conversation, Operation Red Wing came up and we finished dinner. I tell him, I said, "Look, give me your mom's phone number. I'll call her when we get back to Texas. And if you're ever through Austin, come by and see me," right? Which I probably told hundreds of people, Joe. If we had known each other in those days, I said, "Hey, Joe, if you're ever through Austin, come by and see me." Fat chance you're going to come and knock on the door of the governor's mansion, right? Can't do it. So it's a nice thing to say, but realizing that they're not going to show up. Well, I went back, looked up Operation Red Wing, and that's when my computer kind of blew up, and I figured out who this young man was. And you remember in 2006, nobody had heard of this, didn't know who Marcus Luttrell was, what have you. So going about our business, they leave, they deploy, go back to Iraq with his twin brother Morgan, I might add. Morgan and Marcus, they deployed together on that. And the young man who led that tour that day was a lieutenant commander in the Navy, F-18 pilot, by the name of Jake Elsey. Jake Elsey is now a member of Congress. So incredible small world for me that started totally by the grace of God, meeting these boys in Coronado Island. And I called his mom when I got back to Austin, said, "Hey, saw your son, he's doing all right, and if I can ever help you, let me know." Went on about my business. That was in August of 06. The following May of 07, the phone rang in the governor's mansion. the security detail said, there's a young man down here who said you told him the next time he's through Austin, Texas, to come by and see you, and he's here. I said, that's hilarious. I said, what's his name? And Marcus Luttrell. I said, yeah, I told him that. Well, send him in. That was in May of '07, and he lived with us for the next 2.5 years. In August of '09, he left, and that's what started me and my wife on this long journey, this adventure that has taken me to sitting at Joe Rogan's table talking about veterans' mental health. We've been down literally dozens of rabbit trails. Frankly, the bulk of them, they were interesting, but they really didn't bring any relief, didn't bring any help. We learned about the brokenness of our government's ability to help these young men and women. I mean, Marcus literally was separated from the Navy without the ability to have TRICARE even. The only place he could get his health care, Joe, was at the VA. And he had to have some very specific surgeries on his back, highly technical surgeries. And I told him, I said, I'm not going to let you go to the VA and have that done, no offense, but I said, I'll go raise the money and find somebody that we can get you the type of help that you need. And I went to Houston. I talked to a doctor there, Stan Jones, who's the chief medical officer for a stem cell company now called Celtex. But he had heard of Marcus by then. Marcus's book had come out, I think, in '08 when it came out, and it went to #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. So people started to know who Marcus Luttrell was, knew his story, and we were able to get him the medical help that he needed. I also intervened at that time with the Secretary of the Navy, Ray Mabus. And I call Ray. Ray was the former governor of Mississippi, so I knew him through that role. And I told him, I said, here's what I've got. And I said, this kid is a legit American hero. And I said, our government's just completely dropped the ball on being able to take care of him. And I said, I don't want to embarrass your boss, but I said, you need to get this kid back in, reevaluate him, get him not fit for duty so he can get eligible for TRICARE, of which they did. My hat's off to him for doing that and doing it. It just took the sadness of all of this, Joe, from my perspective, is Marcus Luttrell was just fortunate in a lot of different ways. That by the grace of God, he met a governor, a guy that could actually intervene and make a difference. There's literally thousands of young men and women out there today who have mental health issues that don't know a governor, don't have anybody to help. And that's why I've spent however many years, that's been 17 years, helping, being open to all the different ways that we could help these young men and women. Back in '07, I helped create a foundation that buys homes. It's called Military Heroes Support Foundation. And they've given away 1,000 homes now. George Strait gives away one of their homes at every one of his concerts. But even if you are living in a great home, if you're in a mansion and your mind's not where it needs to be, you're just a lonely person, a sad person, a broken person in a beautiful home. But I become a complete believer in plant medicine over the course of the last 5 or 6 years in particular. And the compound ibogaine, ibogaine, that most people never heard of before. That's good and bad because it doesn't have a bad rap because nobody's heard of it before. My job and our job is to be able to educate the public about this plant medicine, this psychoactive plant medicine that absolutely is showing stunning ability to bring people back to normalcy, to reset their brains, to literally give them their lives back. I made the decision that that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my however many years I got left. This is where I want to spend the bulk of my time, telling people about it, explaining to people how this, conservative, right-wing, knuckle-dragging Republican governor became a spokesperson willing to go publicly talk about this plant medicine that literally the data is, I think the data is, you can't argue with the data. We'll talk about a clinical trial that they did out of Stanford this last year. But that's how I went from basically being a guy that wasn't even open to having a conversation about. In 2013, I got talked into talking to a mother who had a son who's an epileptic. And she said the only thing that we can give our son that's relieved him of this is THC. And I was against any of the use of marijuana, medical or otherwise, in 2013. That mother came and sat down to me. I looked at the data. I listened to her powerful story. And we passed in Texas medical use of THC for the cases of epilepsy. And that's my point with all of this, is that I'll never be for. I know I may not agree on this. I'm not for the legalization of drugs. I love Rick Doblin. Rick and I have been on multiple stages together. A lot of the works that he did at MAPS I'm a big supporter of. And I tell him, I said, but I'm not going to get there on the legalization of drugs. I'm just not. And I don't want to get that confused with what we're doing here. This is medically diagnosed, medically dosed, having the proper medical people there, the treatment, the follow-up, all of that. And that's one of the reasons that I think that our government, and thank God Donald Trump won. I'm very open about this, that Donald Trump won this election. He's putting people into place that are open to plant medicine being used for our veterans' mental health. And so I know I've covered a pretty broad piece of landscape in all of that I've just talked about, but that's how I got here. Over a 17-year period of time, I went from an absolute, don't even talk to me about these drugs, to being the Johnny Appleseed of Ibogaine today. Where my wife probably gets tired of going places with me, and the next thing she knows, I'm talking to somebody about plant-based medicine and what I've seen and why we as society need to be really pushing this, talking to our congressmen, talking to our senators, talking to the people that are decision makers, and the private sector, educating the public about this so that they know that there is help out there. And when you add to this the clear evidence that this works on addictions, and we're talking across the board, then the populations that can be affected in a powerful and a positive way is substantial. And that's what God put us on this earth for, is to be good servants. And this, I believe, has the most powerful way to affect the most people in a positive way of anything that I've ever seen in my public service, my 40 years of public service. So I am committed to it. I'm completely and absolutely convinced that the data will back up what we're talking about. And we'll visit about this clinical trial, I'm sure, in the next couple hours.
All right, folks, it's that time of year. Everyone is on a mission to improve their health and wellness habits and set the tone for 2025 by sticking to a routine. And while sticking to a healthy routine isn't always easy, it's so worth it. And you all know that I've been using AG1 for years. It's honestly been so supportive of my foundational nutrition. AG1 is a daily health drink that combines vitamins, minerals, superfoods, and more in just one scoop. And many traditional supplements are poorly absorbed, but AG1 is designed for maximum nutrient absorption and is packed with micronutrients that are hard to get in your everyday diet. You can also add a few drops of their vitamin D3 plus K2 for added immune support. It's a game changer, especially during the winter months. So set the tone for a healthy year ahead with AG1. Simply put, it's a way to invest in your health now and in the long run, and that's why I partnered with them for so long. Try AG1 and get a free bottle of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1.com/Joe Rogan. That's a $76 value gift for free if you go to drinkag1.com/Joe Rogan. Seriously, folks, check it out. We've all been there. You're hungover, thinking about all the dumb stuff you did last night and wondering if anybody remembers. Unfortunately, someone does remember everything you do. Drug. No one uses it recreationally. It has there's no potential whatsoever for addiction to that drug. As a matter of fact, it actually cures addiction. Somehow or another, it rewires the brain.
Yep.
And do you know how Ibogaine was introduced into the zeitgeist?
I don't.
It was Hunter S.
Joe,
Thompson.
you give
No, Hunter S. Thompson in the 1970s when it was Ed Muskie and George McGovern. When McGovern was running for president, when during the primaries, he spread this rumor that Muskie was addicted to Ibogaine, and then he had a Brazilian witch doctor come to visit him, and it tanked Muskie's political career.
I thought fake news was a new thing.
No. Hunter S. Thompson was the beginning of fake news. Well, he called it gonzo journalism, And what he would do is just mix in a bunch of very obviously fake things along with real things. But he was on the Dick Cavett show. See if you can find that clip. It's actually pretty funny.
That's hilarious.
This is him on the he literally decided to tank this guy's political career by making up a rumor about him.
People really believe that Muskie was eating Ibogaine. I never said he was. I said there was a rumor in Milwaukee that he was, which was true, and I started the rumor in Milwaukee.
They finally said, well, you made it all up.
I couldn't believe people really believe that Muskie was eating Ibogaine.
Yeah, it's just repeating itself over and over. But yeah, it's in the Gonzo, the documentary. He goes into it in depth. He just decided that the guy was a big phony, and so he made up this story about the guy being addicted to Ibogaine, of all drugs, which is kind of crazy. And so that's how the public got introduced to Ibogaine.
Yeah, Schedule 1 says that there is no medical purpose for this compound, whatever it might be, and that it's addictive. And Ibogaine is neither of those.
Right.
I mean, clearly evidence, as a matter of fact, if there was a definition of a compound that was not Schedule 1, Ibogaine would be the top of the list, most likely.
Yes, but yet it's Schedule 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for the purpose of educating the public, we go back and understand the early 70s, what Nixon was using these compounds for a political purpose, and he gathered them all up, swept them all up, and put everything under Schedule 1 so he could go after his political enemies,
Yes.
using these compounds as the vehicle to do that.
Yeah, and for the last 50 plus years, people have been imprisoned by that. And that's a giant problem particularly for veterans, which is, I think, the most important use of these things, because it's going to open eyes to people that would never consider the concept of plant medicine or psychedelics. They would never consider it. But most people are so compassionate about the needs of veterans, the demands that they face, and the trials that they face when they return, the mental struggles, the amount of suicides, the amount of addictions. It's overwhelming, and they don't get any support. And people are kind of desperate, and that's what opens up the door to people considering things like yourself, considering things that would not have normally entered into your landscape.
Yeah. You look at you look at the history of how I got there, and I grew up on a dryland cotton farm, about as conservative a part of the world as you could be. I went to school at Texas A&M. I wanted to be a pilot in the United States Air Force. I mean, drugs were absolutely not anything that I wanted to have anything to do with, because at that particular point in time, in the early 70s and in the mid 70s, we got drug tested on a monthly basis. No notice drug testing. You go pee in a bottle and they test you. And if there was one time that you didn't pass that drug test, you were done. And so the fear factor of drugs was driven into us. You go forward with the political messaging through those years, your brain on drugs, just say no to drugs. I mean, and on the one hand, that's a good message. On the other hand, when they're used just for political purposes, and you put compounds on Schedule 1, like Ibogaine, and it can't even be used for clinical trials. It can't be medically used to see, is there some good that can come out of this. And the fascinating thing for me, Joe, is that Mexico, this is a compound that can be used. Canada, I think Australia, France. I mean, there's a host of countries around the world that allow for Ibogaine to be used for clinical trials and for medical purposes. Yet we're sitting here with 20 plus veterans a day killing themselves. Yet we have a compound that clearly the data shows that this compound, appropriately used and appropriately overseen, can absolutely change lives and save lives. And for me to be able to know that, and then still see government say, no, we're not interested, is really frustrating. And it's why I'm so excited about Bobby Kennedy, Jay Bhattacharya, Dr. Oz, Nolan Williams, individuals who may come into this administration at very high levels that are supportive of plant medicine. So I think we've got this great opportunity. We've been given this gift, and I hope you got members of Congress that are supportive of this on both sides of the aisle. This isn't a partisan issue of any sense of the imagination. So I'm really excited about the potential of being able to get clinical trials done, move this off of Schedule 1 into worst case scenario Schedule 2, even Schedule 3, so that we get broad amount of trials done, so that people who have questions about it, those can be answered, and they can see the data. I mean, we'll talk about this clinical trial out of Stanford that is just stunning results.
Well, let's talk about that. Like, when was that performed?
Brian, you want to hit that one, or you want me to take it?
I don't mind to take it. In 2018...
Brian, pull that microphone up to your face a little bit. There you go.
How's that?
Perfect.
All right. In 2018, individuals by the name of Amber and Marcus Capone founded an organization called VETS, Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions. Marcus Capone had been a special operator, and he had done multiple tours in both Afghanistan and Iraq. When he came home, finally from war, Amber described an individual who bore no resemblance to the man that she married. He came home as a severely traumatized individual and was met by a system which could not in any way effectively address the nature of his trauma. Recognizing that his life was at stake, as well as the future of her family, she became desperate and went online and discovered the existence of a compound called Ibogaine. She made arrangements for Marcus to receive treatment from an individual by the name of Martine Polanco, who operated a clinical operation called Mission Within. Amber, as a last shot at saving her family, sent him to Mexico to receive Ibogaine treatment. She said when he returned, he came back as the man she remembered marrying before he ever went to war. As they learned about other friends of theirs who were coming back home with similar circumstances, on the verge of familial dissolution, with Marcus and his friends at the verge of suicide, they began, just as a friend group, to put money together to send their close circle of individuals down to receive this treatment. They came together to form bets, and since 2018, over 1,000 veterans have traveled to the Ambio Clinic south of Tijuana to receive Ibogaine treatment for symptoms of traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder. Because of the miraculous outcomes which were endorsed by the veterans who were receiving this treatment, a group of philanthropists funded a study out of Stanford University, which was led by Dr. Nolan Williams. And over the course of several years, a cohort of 30 veterans were evaluated before and after Ibogaine treatment. They were evaluated comprehensively through the administration of a battery of psychological tests to quantify the nature and duration of their symptoms. They underwent pre- and post-treatment MRI scans. These scans were compared against a database which had been compiled of hundreds of thousands of healthy adult brains covering the human lifespan. And through an algorithmic assessment, the question was, what was the physiological effect upon the human brain, if any? To explain these miraculous outcomes were veterans who had been on the verge of suicide, who had been paralyzed by symptomatology associated with profound anxiety, profound depression. In many cases, veterans who were prescribed an array of habituating pharmacology which ineffectively addressed their symptomatology were not just back to what they could remember being before they experienced their trauma, but had been liberated from that pharmacology. The results of that study are nothing short of miraculous when it comes to the way in which Ibogaine has been revealed to have significant neuroregenerative properties that impact the human brain, with profound implications for conditions for which there are no current effective treatments. Specifically, the white matter that covers the surface of our brains, which is the highway across which all of our thoughts and impulses travel, grew and thickened in size across the entire surface of each of these veterans' brains. The centers of the brain responsible for emotional regulation and executive functioning grew in size. The average reversal of brain age among this cohort of 30 veterans was 1.5 years, with the top 5 among that cohort seeing a reversal of brain age of almost 5 years. Right now, there are individuals who live offshore from the United States who are using Ibogaine to effectively treat symptoms associated with multiple sclerosis, Lyme disease, and Parkinson's disease. Just about 2 weeks ago, Governor Perry and I had the privilege of spending some time with a researcher who is based out of the University of Zurich in Switzerland. This researcher has developed a protocol for the treatment of Parkinson's symptoms with Ibogaine. We had the privilege of visiting with one of his patients who wishes to remain anonymous, as well as a family member of this patient. We were shown a video whereby this individual had developed Parkinson's disease at the age of 41. It had advanced so aggressively that by age 51, this gentleman was completely bedfast. As a last resort, he underwent an invasive intracranial surgical procedure called deep brain stimulation, where they drilled holes through his skull and implanted electrodes which were designed to stimulate the production of what is called glioneurotropic growth factor, which essentially stimulates the dopamine receptors to produce dopamine, the absence of which is implicated in the development of Parkinson's disease. And while this gentleman was no longer bedfast, he was not able to volitionally control his bodily movements. The video that we saw demonstrated his attempts to stand and walk, and the ability to walk was non-existent. After he had undergone the deep brain stimulation, he signed up for euthanasia services in the country in which he lives because it is legal and he was at the end of his rope. He underwent a 4-week course of upward titration with low-dose Ibogaine that did not produce a psychoactive experience, and at the end of those 4 weeks, that gentleman was able to stand, walk, and function as a normal human being. The outcome is nothing short of miraculous.
His mother said that he rode his bike every day now. I mean, I'm telling you, Joe, this is the most stunning. I mean, it's a short video. I get it. It's anecdotal. But for my purposes, it was just backing up what we have seen, what we've learned about how Ibogaine. Now, the treatments down in Mexico are flood doses. This was a microdosing that they did over there. But again, it gets to my point of this is exactly why we, as the United States, and with our medical capacity in this country, need to be doing this type of clinical trials so that we find out, is this really what we think it is? And if it is, this needs to be widespread treatment for MS, for Parkinson's, for addictions, for PTSD, for traumatic brain injury. I mean, I think we're on the cusp of some extraordinary medical breakthroughs because of this compound, Ibogaine.
Dr. Williams has said, and I agree, that Ibogaine is the most sophisticated medication on the planet. The results of that Stanford study were published in a top 5 medical research journal called Nature Medicine on January 5th, 2024. An organization called the Brain and Behavioral Research Foundation named that study as its number 2 study in terms of neuropharmacology in the world for the year 2024. I have become convinced that any system which maintains Ibogaine's criminality is in fact criminal and needs to be tore apart brick by brick.
It does seem like a miraculous compound. And what's fascinating to me is that how little was known about it until just basically a decade or so ago. It started making its way into the zeitgeist. And primarily, I heard about it from people. My friend Ed Clay was the first person I heard about it. He became addicted to pills. He had a back injury. And he started talking about it. He went to Mexico and got treated, and then he wound up opening up a center in Mexico. And since then, I've known quite a few veterans, mostly veterans, that they've been led there by other veterans, guys who've gotten help or new friends that had gotten help that way and sent them down there. And every single one of them that I've known that have come back from there has had a miraculous result. It's almost like too good to promise. It's like when you're talking about it, people are like, there's so many people probably listening to this that are at the end of their rope. And they're hearing this like, oh, come on, don't get my hopes up for this miraculous thing. Because nothing miraculous works.
If it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true.
Right.
But I would have said that myself until I've seen with my own eyes. I've been studying this. You ask a little bit more about, in 2017, I went to Washington to be the Secretary of Energy. I asked Morgan Luttrell, Marcus's twin brother, former Navy SEAL, was working on his PhD in brain science, if he would put that on hold and come with me up to D.C. to work at the Department of Energy. And Morgan did. And he was over in a part of the agency where we have oversight of all the supercomputers, or the bulk of the supercomputers in the United States, our national labs have. And we have some partnerships with different universities, the University of San Francisco, University of California, San Francisco, and a researcher out there named Jeffrey Manley, MD, PhD, and he was doing some studies on the brain for traumatic brain injury, and they were scanning the brain using our supercomputers at the Department of Energy, and Morgan was helping him oversee that as they were going through it because of his obvious background and his study on brain science and what have you. And that's the first time I ever heard about anyone going to Mexico to be treated with this plant medicine was through Morgan. And I kind of picked it up, in a conversation that he was having, and it kind of put me back on my heels a little bit. And I was like, Morgan, you need to be careful with that. Yes, sir. But anyway, that was where I heard about Ibogaine for the first time. Was in probably late 2017, early 2018. And then, as I started educating myself about it, I was curious about it. Does this work, and why does it work? Then it's led to this study. Dr. Nolan Williams, PhD, MD at Stanford, oversaw the study that Brian just did a fabulous job of laying out there. 30 vets. They all had moderate to severe PTSD. They were all given a clinical psychological exam that put them into the moderate to severe PTSD range. Some of them had traumatic brain injury. Some of them had alcohol issues. I think 8 out of the 30 had tried to kill themselves. This was a highly overseen group that were treated, and the results, 88%, Joe, 88% of those individuals 6 months later had zero, not a little bit better, they had zero symptoms of PTSD. And I talked to Nolan within a few days ago, and it appears that even after a year that these symptoms are gone. This is stunningly powerful work. And again, I sound like a broken record, but this is the reason that this country needs to put this into place so that we can clinically trial it at various and sundry places across this country, at the VA, at some of our great medical institutions, the private sector. If this is what we think it is, this could be the greatest, the greatest medicine brought to mankind in history.
You know, and it takes someone like you. It takes a Republican, straight-laced guy with a governor. When you're coming out and talking about something like this, that's going to open up a lot of people's eyes.
I had a political consultant when I first started being public about this. A young man, in this case, called me up and he said, hey, Governor, I heard you talking about this plant-based medicine, use of psychedelics. What are you doing? He said, you're fixing to throw away 40 years of building up a good conservative reputation. He said, you know, you need to be really, really careful with this. What are you doing? And I told him, I said, listen, I get your concern. I understand it. But I said two things. Number one, I've spent a lot of time studying. I said, I've read, I've talked to people. I've been to Mexico multiple times to observe this and to see it. And I said, I'm convinced of what I've seen is true, and that what I've studied and what I've gone down and really put my arms around. I said, I'm convinced that this data is what it is, and we need to move forward with this. But I said, I'll tell you what's even more important for me. My reputation is not worth more than their lives. And that's what drives me, is that what I've seen, I believe. And I'm willing to put my reputation on the line. And I think, you know, when we see people like Marcus Luttrell and Morgan Luttrell and other members of Congress who have been treated and have publicly talked about that they have been to Mexico and they've been treated. Morgan will tell you it saved his marriage. Marcus will tell you it saved his life. That's powerful stuff.
It's powerful stuff. Yeah. Do you know Sean Ryan?
I know who he is.
Yeah, Sean Ryan had a very similar experience, and you know, obviously veteran, Navy SEAL,
Podcaster.
Yep, huge podcaster. It's just there's so many stories. It's too much to ignore, and it's again, it's veterans, the people that we owe the most to, that have been ignored the most, and they come back with the biggest burden, and there's no help for them.
Yeah.
But yet there's this thing, and for some asinine reason, from 1970. Was put on a Schedule 1 list, and because of that, we can't look at it and consider it as a treatment option.
It's interesting what you just said, how we mistreated our veterans. And I think this is really important, and Brian saw it firsthand over in Kentucky. I mean, you think about, I started going down to Brooks Army Medical Center in the burn center down there in '05 when kids started coming back from IED blast, and they were burned, they're traumatized, and my sister-in-law worked down there. I'm the governor. I go down checking on some of the Texas kids who show up there, and kids at other places as well. But that's where I started seeing, I'd walk in the burn center, and there'd be a kid with a lollipop that was an opioid. And our government started literally handing out sackfuls of opioids and patting these kids on the butt and saying, you know, we'll see you. And we literally addicted a generation of our warfighters who got wounded both physically and mentally. And the government was giving them all of these opioids. Then they're masking that with alcohol, and we're sitting around going, gosh, I wonder why Billy and Bobby killed themselves. And we were the reason, because the government did such a poor job of dealing with this issue in the mid-2000s as we were at the, you know, we've been at war for 20 years now. I mean, when I think about the history of civilization, has there ever been a time when a group of warfighters were ever in this much conflict for this long a period of time? I can't think of it. You go back, you know, all the way to the to prehistoric times. You know, we fought wars for a short period of time, then we spent a lot of time walking from one place to another. You just go back into America's history and the Revolutionary War, and then the Civil War. You know, my grandfather was engaged in that conflict, and he wrote a book about it, and he talked about walking for weeks through mud and bad conditions, and then they fought for maybe 48 hours, and then then you go through up into World War I, spend a little bit more time in combat, World War II, and we started seeing people who were affected, what we call it, shell shock, World War II. Then Vietnam came along, and these young men were in conflict for a little period. We have literally had, particularly our special operators, the Force Recon guys, the Delta Force guys, the Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, where they literally are in combat for weeks at a time, months at a time, and even when they're out of direct conflict, because of that environment that they're in, they're always, their hormone levels, are through the roof because they're always on, head on a swivel, looking around. Is that person walking in here with the, with the shawl on? Does it have an explosive in it? I mean, always on. The fear of being attacked, being harmed, is through the roof, and that's. These kids are all a bunch of guinea pigs from the standpoint of how these traumatic events affect them, and our government's failed, and this is an opportunity for our government, both at the federal level and in the state level, and that's the reason that Brian has come to Texas to help us with the Texas Ibogaine Initiative. We're going to be introducing to the Texas legislature an initiative for clinical trial on Ibogaine. I don't know all the details of it. Brian's probably got a better handle on it than me from that standpoint. But I look at this as we've been given this great gift of a parallel track with the federal government, with these individuals that hopefully are going to be coming in at the HHS, at all of the under agencies that are involved there. And at the same time, Texas going with a parallel legislation to both educate the public about Ibogaine and to do clinical trials so that we've got the data to back up the education process that's going on.
Brian, could you explain what is the unique pathway that allows Ibogaine to help people with addictions? Because it's a very unusual thing that it does to people.
If I might provide some historical context on the reality that you have just articulated. In 1962, a heroin addict by the name of Howard Lotsoff, whose widow, Norma, is still living in New York City. He was part of an underground subculture in the early 60s known as the Hippies. And Howard came into contact with Ibogaine in 1962. And he took it out of curiosity just to see what would occur. After he took it, he discovered that his desire for heroin had vanished, despite a 9-year hardcore dependency. Howard, along with a guy by the name of Stanley Glick, a gentleman by the name of Dana Bill, joined also by a guy by the name of Dr. Kenneth Albert, were the original pioneers who essentially engaged in a decades-long process of developing observational field data which demonstrated that Ibogaine had the unique ability to resolve physiological dependence on opioids. The mechanism of action was not understood and is still not understood. What is known is that the opioid-dependent brain does not have the capacity to produce its own dopamine and serotonin. Dopamine and serotonin are our baseline survival chemicals. They drive all of our most fundamental human instincts. The drive to eat, the drive to drink, the drive to procreate. The human body's natural physical capacity to produce dopamine at its maximum, as measured in what's called nanograms per deciliter, is 125 nanograms per deciliter. Opioids produce a dopamine response of 925 nanograms per deciliter, exceeded only by meth, which produces a dopamine response of 1,100 nanograms per deciliter. For years, individuals, as the opioid epidemic has played out in this country, with the detonation of OxyContin and the Appalachian Mountains in 1996, for years we looked at this problem as one of profound moral failure by those who found themselves trapped in addiction. What I learned in my roles in government was that was completely wrong. What we are seeing are the results of a profound neurochemical brain injury expressed by the shutdown of dopamine and serotonin in the brain due to opioid exposure. Ibogaine has the unique ability to restore the brain's dopamine and serotonin production to its pre-opioid exposure levels within 36 to 48 hours, thereby fully resolving physiological opioid dependence with a single administration for 80% of individuals the first time. That number goes to 97% with a second supportive dose. It is extraordinary, especially when we consider the outcomes that are produced by our existing treatment system. Addiction currently, you have two pathways. One is abstinence only, and the other is what's called medication for opioid use disorder, or what I refer to as opioid maintenance treatment. Outcomes associated with abstinence treatment are essentially a rate of success of 7%. And the reason for that is because it takes the brain 18 months of complete abstinence from opioids to recover its own individual dopamine and serotonin production. You have to be completely abstinent for 18 months before the brain begins to heal. Ibogaine shortens that to 48 hours. It is something that is not understood, but is concrete and real. One other thing is important to mention about its physiological properties. Ibogaine can produce miraculous outcomes for individuals who find themselves substance dependent. Its applications haven't just been successful when it comes to opioid dependency. It is the only known substance to successfully treat meth dependency. And when we consider that the current street economy, the prevailing combination is fentanyl and meth, there is no more compelling circumstance to demand the accelerated development of this therapeutic than the current reality of drug dependency and death in America. The risk comes with misadministration. There is a significant cardiac risk which accompanies Ibogaine. It has the propensity to prolong the beats between the heart, or what is called prolonged QT interval. The fancy word for it is Torsades syndrome. If an individual is given Ibogaine improperly, it will slow and stop their heart and they will die. This is a very serious medication, and it must at all times be administered by a medical professional with a background in interventional cardiology, supported by a nursing team that can deliver the administration of atropine to stabilize the heart's rhythm if it goes out of whack during the course of treatment. The other important thing to know is, though that risk exists, it can be fully and completely mitigated by the co-administration of magnesium, a methodology that the best practice clinics in Mexico, I've had the privilege of going to two. The first was previously mentioned, which is Ambio south of Tijuana, and the other is called Beyond, and it is in Cancun.
B-E-O-N.
B-E-O-N-D.
B-E-O-N-D.
Yes, sir. Both of those clinics utilize the co-administration of magnesium in order to prevent the development of torsades. I explain all this to say to your audience, do not, under any circumstances, try to order Ibogaine online for self-administration. Do not free venture out into the world looking for any old clinic. Be very careful and selective. There are informational websites. One is maintained by a lady by the name of Juliana Mulligan called Intervision Ibogaine, which has a list of providers. As I said, I have been to both Ambio and Beyond. They are clinical operations that adhere to the absolute best, highest standards of safety. And you want to make sure, if you have a family member, that you're sending them to a place that recognizes that Ibogaine is the very best possible beginning that you can give an individual to restore their lives in the aftermath of the devastation associated with addiction. You want to make sure that the clinical staff is comprised of highly credentialed physicians, nurses with intensive care background and certification who are also believers in the advancement of this particular medication and who also have experience with it. It needs to be delivered within a supportive therapeutic environment whereby you are within a community that is connected to your humanity, where you have the ability to receive services that heal your mind, your body, and most importantly, your soul.
Amen.
And it can actually be done. It sounds so crazy that this is illegal, and it sounds so crazy that this is so beneficial, and that it's taken so long. Here we are in 2024, all the 54 years after all this stuff was made illegal, and we're still dealing with the repercussions of this political decision, essentially, by the Nixon administration.
Is it all right if I talk about how I came to learn about
Please.
this? I'm going to have to start at the beginning, and I will try to be as economical with the use of words as possible. I was raised in one of Virginia's 5 coal mining counties, Russell County, Virginia, which economically and culturally is much more similar to eastern Kentucky and southern West Virginia than it is to any other part of Virginia. I come out of a coal mining family. My grandfathers were both grade school educated. My father's father stopped attending school in the 3rd grade. My mother's father stopped attending school in the 6th. Both of them were underground at the age of 16, and that's where they spent 40 years of their lives. My family has been generationally devastated by profound effects of alcohol and substance abuse, as well as untreated mental illness. It has blighted us for as long as anyone can remember. This is the environment in which my parents grew up. They married early. My first memories as a child were of screaming, cussing, and chaos. I can remember my grandfathers who lived incredibly difficult lives. My mother's father was one of 16, had a pair of shoes given to him once a year. My father's father was one of 11. Neither one of them had a full set of fingers. You could hear my dad's dad breathe 50 feet away from the combined effects of black lung and tuberculosis that he had contracted in the coal camp in which my father was raised. When I was a young boy and I would go and visit them, each of them, separately and independently, would at some point pull me aside and they would say, Papa knows that you're scared and that you're anxious, but you need to know a couple of things. Number one, Papa loves you. Number two, and most important, God loves you. You have a special and unique purpose to achieve the life that has been handed to you from on high. And no matter how scared you get, no matter how rough you think things are, if you will have faith that God will take care of you, you're going to come through just fine. If my grandfathers had not provided me in those very early years with sanctuary from that early chaos, the stability of their love, and an affirmation of my spiritual significance, the chances are, if I were alive at all, I certainly would not be sitting here. I would be looking to people like Governor Perry and people who held jobs like I once did, wondering what they were going to do to pull me out of the ditch. I went through school at a time when Ronald Reagan was president, and just like the duckling to the duck, he was my North Star as to what America was all about. I had a very idealized version of American history and civics education delivered to me by grade school teachers who had come of age during World War II or ladies who had been trained by those teachers. Coming out of a working class family, my dad was an installer for a telephone company and a lineman for 40 years. He had some struggles with alcohol when I was very young that he, through iron will, overcame. And today he is one of my absolute best friends in his life. I was raised, along with my brother, to recognize the benchmarks of success as becoming either a doctor or a lawyer. I wasn't much good by way of math or science, but I could write and talk a little bit. And I was also taught that law was the way in which you could defend truth and justice in the American way. So with dewy-eyed optimism, I went to undergrad and had a wonderful time. And then I went to law school. And by the end of that first semester, with the acquisition of significant student loan debt, all of those dewy-eyed notions had been crushed and destroyed before my very eyes. At the end of the 3-year legal education process, I came to know and to understand that law has nothing to do with any of those things that I was raised to believe. That law is often nothing other, oftentimes, than the tyrant's will, and always so when it is used to produce predetermined, manipulated outcomes in the hands of judges who drive results based on their own individual biases, predilections, and preferences. Because I owed such debt, my first job was to just get a job, and I found myself with an accidental career practicing workers' compensation law in Kentucky. I had the privilege of being mentored by a lady named Mary Kay Williams for 1 year. She had managed to achieve partnership with the law firm at which we worked together. But in May of 2002, tragically at the age of 33, she died as a result of a fall from her attic at her home after a Memorial Day party. The next day I went into the office. The senior partner called me in and said, "There's no easy time to have this discussion, so we're going to have it now." There is a 300 case caseload that Mary Kay handled. The bulk of those cases belong to Walmart stores. They are a significant client to this law firm. I don't know you, but you are one of the few associates of which she had glowing things to say. I need you to get in there and get your hands around that caseload and anchor this client to this firm. That touched off what was a 16-year legal career practicing workers' compensation law across Kentucky in the years which coincided with the onset and explosion of the opioid epidemic out of central and southern Appalachia. I traveled from one end of the state to the other representing Walmart, Tyson Foods, and Tennessee Valley Authority, practicing thousands of cases over the course of those years. I can remember taking the deposition of a particular individual who I would describe as representative of the dynamics of the opioid epidemic. This person was usually a middle-aged woman, somewhere between the ages of 45 and 70. She would have worked tirelessly her entire life, usually in eastern Kentucky, working in low-skill, low-wage jobs, convenience stores, Family Dollars, Walmarts, and she worked hard, and she worked consistently, and she would have been someone whose labor was a monument of devotion to her family. At some point in time, she would have had a work accident, a slip and fall, or a lifting injury. She would make her way to either a physician or, in some cases, a lawyer. She would undergo an evaluation, and she would endorse the existence of pain complaints throughout her body. This person would undergo a series of diagnostic studies that failed to reveal anything that was significant, certainly not enough to explain all of the pain symptoms that this person endorsed. As a young lawyer, I took this lady's deposition probably 30 or 40 times, and I would get them to speak to their pain, I would get them to speak to their debility, and then I would pull out their medical records, which demonstrated that CT scans, MRIs, electrodiagnostic studies all had failed to reveal any objective physiological explanation for their complaints of pain. And being enthusiastic and wanting to defend the very best interests of my clients, I thought that I was being put on, that the plaintiff's lawyer had sat with this lady and had come up with a sob story to tell me in order to pull money out of my client's pockets. I was always very patient, and I was kind with the individual, but I would say, ma'am, we have gone through a stack of medical records, and there does not appear to be anything wrong with you. And this lady would start to cry, and she would say, Mr. Hubbard, I'm not a doctor, and I can't tell you what's wrong with me. The only thing that I can tell you is from the time I open my eyes until I go to bed, I hurt from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet, and I can hardly make myself get up out of bed. This person's medical treatment, by the time they got to me, had consisted of the application of high-powered narcotic medications in response to their complaints, along with habituating psychotropic medications, OxyContin, Xanax, Xanaflex, the whole 9 yards. If they were not physiologically disabled by their accident, they had been physiologically disabled by the pharmacology that had been thrown at them. I took this person's deposition hundreds of times, and one day driving down the road, it dawned on me that whether these ladies had physical symptoms which were identifiable or not, they were truly, genuinely experiencing profound pain, which had caused significant debility. That pain was not physical. It was emotional, and it was spiritual. These ladies had worked lifetimes looking at a dead end, and at the time that they had their work accident, it was the straw that broke the camel's back for any hope they had of a future defined by dignity and autonomy. And their hope had been broken, and that broken hope came through as profound physical pain that was rooted within their spirit. By virtue of my connection to an expert who I had utilized in my workers' compensation cases, in December of 2016 I received a call from a member of the then administration of Governor Matt Bevin. And they were looking for an individual who could come in and look at the state's Social Security disability system. That's a federal program that exists to help individuals who are disabled as a result of either physical or mental maladies. And while it's a federal program, it is administered by the individual states. And I was asked, what do you know about Social Security disability? And I said, well, not much. I know it and workers' compensation go hand in hand. And I know that Kentucky, for as long as anyone can remember, has a significant portion of its adult population receiving that benefit. We've been second only to West Virginia for at least 30 years. And they said, well, we're looking for someone who can come in and evaluate the system, understand how it works, and understand why Kentucky has so many people receiving it. Is this a job that you think that you could do? And I said, I don't know, but I'll sure give it my best try, and it's an honor to be considered. I'll take it. So in February of 17, I went in and began to lead Kentucky's Social Security disability system. My first job was to understand why things were the way they were. I assembled a team of high-caliber intellects who had years, decades of policy experience with the Social Security Disability Program. And I wrote down 19 different statistical metrics that I wish for us to evaluate around the enrollment into the Social Security Disability Program, as well as different socioeconomic factors which were unique to Kentucky. And in October of 2017, we issued what was the very first of its kind retrospective study of the evolution of the Social Security Disability Program in Kentucky, covering the years 1980 to 2015. And here were some of the statistics that were the highlights of that report. Between 1980 and 2015, Kentucky's population grew 20%. Enrollment in the Social Security Disability Program grew 249%. Childhood enrollment. Now, these are children who are under the age of 18. Most of them come from highly impoverished backgrounds where there's very little opportunity to have what we can consider to be a conventional healthy childhood. Childhood enrollment grew 449% over those 35 years. We've heard the enrollment statistics with the state's Medicaid database, which tracked the issuance of every single pill that was capable of habituation to the state's SSI Medicaid population. Between 2001 and 2015, the issuance of prescription opioids to adults within the Social Security disability system grew 210%, from 47 doses per adult to 147 doses per adult. The issuance of habituating psychotropic medications to children, whether it was amphetamine, whether it was antidepressant, anything that could create physiological dependence, grew 168%, from 275 doses per child to 457 doses per SSI Medicaid child. My first month on the job, we had the Social Security Administration's federal liaison to the state of Kentucky come in for what was called the home agency visit. This was a semi-annual review of the state's Social Security Disability Program and the way in which it was meeting federal performance standards. I wish that I had had a recording of this meeting when it occurred, because this person gave me a gift of truth right off the bat. I assembled the management team. I was sitting at the end of the table, and this person began by saying, "Folks, claims are down, and that's bad, because claims equal budget." I came to learn that the Social Security Disability Program was not necessarily run primarily for the benefit of the Social Security Disability recipients. It was run for the perpetual expansion of the SSA's own bureaucracy, and that while Social Security Disability benefits represented 16% of benefit payments within the system, it consumed 45% of the agency's budget. In order to get more money, you must have more recipients, despite the nature of those outcomes. I came to also run the state's child support enforcement system. Within that role, it was perceived that the state was not delivering child support payments to children. It is the largest single anti-poverty program, not just in Kentucky, but in the country. Direct payment transfers from an obligated parent to the custodial parent. It was believed that there were a number of deadbeat dads who were just not paying the bill. And what I came to find out was that those officials who were responsible for running the program, and in Kentucky that was 120 individually elected county attorneys, in fact had some systemic issues. There were a cohort of county attorneys who were running that program perfectly. There was another cohort that were running it with some degree of success, but not necessarily at top performance. And then there was another group that were running their operations horribly. I discovered that within the cohort of 117 elected officials, 40 of them owned their own property, which they then turned around and charged the child support program rent. Essentially, federal and state tax dollars for rent payments were going to allow for the acquisition of private real estate equity interests by elected officials at the county level, something that was immediately ended when I came into that job. Governor Bevin lost his race for re-election in 2019, and because of some of the measures that were taken to bring accountability, transparency, and performance expectations to that child support program, I was terminated from my job on hour one of day one of the administration of newly elected Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. I was picked up by a gentleman who is my dear friend by the name of Daniel Cameron, who had been elected Attorney General in 2019. He asked that I run his Office of Medicaid Fraud and Abuse Control, a law enforcement office which investigates and prosecutes medical providers for being engaged in fraud against the state's Medicaid system. This coincided with the onset of COVID. I brought in a deputy by the name of Matt Kleinert, who was a Medicaid policy expert, and over the course of 2 years, despite the shutdown of the state's court system, we doubled the number of criminal indictments and convictions of medical providers on that system. A significant portion of that caseload was comprised of providers of opioid maintenance treatments who were using their clinics, which were intended to help those who were struggling with opioid addiction, as glorified drug dealing operations which fomented the diversion of Suboxone in every little town and county in Kentucky. And it was an eye-opening experience to recognize the predators within this universe of operation that is supposed to be restorative and helpful to people in recovery. Because of the way in which I believe I had developed a reputation as a no-nonsense, get-it-done public servant, the Deputy Attorney General at the time, his name was Barry Dunn, asked me if I would have any interest in running the state's opioid commission. The Kentucky legislature had set up a framework to administer what is now $1 billion in settlements from opioid distributors and manufacturers for their role in the creation and perpetuation of the opioid epidemic. While the people at home are wonderful and beautiful, many of the conditions that exist there exist because of how terribly Kentucky state government has functioned since the end of the Civil War. Kentucky in many categories is first where one would wish to be last, and last where folks would wish to be first. It has one of the highest rates of childhood poverty in the country, one of the highest rates of child abuse in the country, one of the highest rates of parental incarceration in the country, one of the highest rates of child sexual abuse in the country. All of the tender and material that is necessary to create the devastation associated with the opioid epidemic. Kentucky was like a drought-stricken forest, and OxyContin was the lightning bolt that started on fire in 1996. Like Louisiana, there has been a history of systemic political corruption which has impaired the ability to produce progress for our people. So when I was asked if I had an interest in doing that job, I said, well, this is a very treacherous opportunity, because with this amount of money coming in, there's going to be a lot of buzzards gathered around the wagon who are ready to pick the bones clean. If y'all will let me set up this commission and run it in a way that is accessible, accountable, and transparent to the people of Kentucky, I would be privileged to have the opportunity to do it. Mr. Dunn looked at me and said, we wouldn't have it any other way. I had to go through an interview process, and through that process, the question was asked, what do we need to do with that money? And I said, well, let's recognize that while $842 million is a tremendous sum of money to the average ear, it's going to be paid to this state over 15 years. At its height, Purdue Pharma was making $100 million a month off the sales of OxyContin. This settlement represents roughly 8.5 months of OxyContin sales, but we're going to be getting it over 15 years. These are crumbs off the tables of gluttons, and we have got to make sure that this one-time, non-recurring revenue stream is utilized for its maximum best impact to pull this state out of this travesty. And I said, one thing that we have got to look for is an opportunity to develop a breakthrough therapeutic that can deliver materially better outcomes than what we are getting with our existing system. Our existing system is unacceptably mediocre, and it is necessary if we're going to change generational dynamics to improve upon what we have. We've got to look for Kentucky's Manhattan Project opportunity to pioneer a therapeutic breakthrough for opioid addiction. And I said, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to get to looking. In 2018, I came into knowledge of the psilocybin mushroom and the way in which it has profound impacts on treatment-resistant anxiety and depression, and in the case of me in particular, with my family's history, alcoholism. And I followed developments around its research applications over the next several years. I came into contact with an author who goes by the pen name of Juliana Christina, who wrote beautifully about her own experiences with the psilocybin mushroom, which helped her overcome a lifetime of debility, anchored in anxiety, depression, and a near-fatal eating disorder. On July the 29th, 2022, I reached out to her and I said, hey, this is who I am. I've been given this job. What can you tell me about the universe of psychedelics and whether there is anything that shows special application or impact for opioid dependency? She said, have you ever heard of Ibogaine? I said, I had not. She said, I'm going to put you in touch with a woman by the name of Juliana Mulligan. You tell her that I sent you and ask her to tell you her story. So I reached out to Juliana, told her who I was, and I said, tell me your story. Juliana proceeded to tell me about her life with addiction as a young American woman. She herself had been a heroin addict. She had been incarcerated. She had been homeless. And at one point in time, she moved to Columbia to teach English as a second language. And while there, she discovered that Columbia has open pharmacies that are unregulated. She said that she was able to go into a pharmacy in Columbia and get as much of what she wanted whenever she wanted. And she did. And she said one morning that she woke up and looked in the mirror and she said, I knew that I was going to die. This was it. And I was desperate to give myself a chance to live. And she said, I had done every form of treatment that was known. I did abstinence. I did Suboxone. And she said, what they didn't tell me about Suboxone was if you try to take yourself off of it, Suboxone withdrawal made my heroin withdrawal look like a cakewalk. It was one of the most horrific experiences I ever had in my life. She said, I found about this alkaloid called Ibogaine through online internet research. And she said, what I didn't know was that there are a number of operations that operate within the underground that don't necessarily adhere to the necessary safety practices to assure that this treatment can both be safe and effective. She said, I made my way to Guatemala. I was in the hands of a practitioner who didn't know what they were doing, and I was given double the dose that I should have received. She said, I went into cardiac arrest 6 times and nearly died. She said, I remember waking up in the intensive care unit of a Guatemalan hospital, and she said, I felt the best I ever felt in my entire life. Juliana put me in touch with a lady by the name of Adriana Kurtzer in New York City, who at the time ran a boutique law firm called the Plant Medicine Law Firm. Adriana and I had a brief introductory conversation. I told her, I said, I want to learn as much as I possibly can about Ibogaine. I've spoken with Juliana, and this sounds too good to be true. I want to know if there's any legitimacy about this, and if so, perhaps what the state of Kentucky can do to move the needle on its development. She said, I have a Rolodex of people that I think could be helpful to you. Who would you like to meet? I said, well, I don't know the names of folks around this. I can just give you generally the category of folks that I would love to be able to speak with. I need to know who the foremost academic and medical researchers of this compound are. I need to understand the existence of any activist organizations that would have particular cultural relevance to Kentucky, a profoundly politically conservative and religiously fundamentalist state. And I said, finally, I need to know whether there are any philanthropists who are willing to support or who have an interest in an opportunity that may exist around Ibogaine. She said, all right, let me get to work. She said, would you be willing to travel to New York City if I hosted a dinner party for you? And I said, yes, but on one condition. I said, I work in a deeply politically conservative office, and I'm pretty sure I've got some people around me who would be ready to cut my head off if they knew that I was even sniffing around the area of psychedelics for a potential treatment. I said, if I come, this has to be done completely confidentially, and everybody must take a vow of silence until such time as I can decide whether or not this is something to present to the office. My wife and I, along with one of my close friends by the name of Scott Hornbuckle, who was also an advisor to the commission who I brought in, traveled to New York City on December 5th of 2022. On December 9th, we had this dinner party. I met with these individuals who had gathered, the researchers, the philanthropists, veteran activists who had gathered around Ibogaine, as well as the application of other psychedelics for the treatment of war-related trauma. When I got home to Kentucky on December 11th, they opened up their networks and put me in touch with Amber and Marcus Capone, Dr. Nolan Williams, Dr. Kenneth Alper, and all other folks who have gathered around Ibogaine to push for its accessibility within the U.S. medical system. On January 31st of 23, I gave a presentation to Attorney General Cameron, and I said, I believe we have found Kentucky's Manhattan Project opportunity. And I laid out what the concrete realities are of Ibogaine, and they are three. Number one, it resolves physiological substance dependence on an accelerated time frame in a manner that frees an individual from the physical consequences of their dependencies. Number two, it has a profound psychological effect for the individual, whereby on the back end of treatment, having been physiologically restored, they have a sense of ownership over their self and their future, whereby they will live a life that is defined by choice rather than compulsion. And that is a fundamental quality that one must have if they are going to rebuild their life. Finally, and most significantly, many people, the overwhelming majority of folks who have an Ibogaine experience, come away with an affirmation that they are a spiritual being who is made in the image of an eternal creator whose essence is pure and unconditional love, and that creator has conferred a special and unique purpose on their life to be achieved. When those three qualities were properly understood, Attorney General Cameron blessed me to lead the commission on the exploration of setting aside $42 million, 5% of the state's settlement funds, to create a public-private partnership whereby a drug developer would match the state's investment on the front end by assuming all legal, logistical, and financial risks associated with securing the FDA's approval to pursue clinical research trials for the development of Ibogaine as a breakthrough therapeutic treatment for opioid use disorder, co-occurring substance use disorder, and any other mental health conditions for which it demonstrated efficacy. We had a high-profile public announcement on May the 31st of 2023 to announce this exploration. We conducted 3 very high-profile public hearings, each of which lasted about 5 hours, about all aspects of Ibogaine. These hearings are available online as a formal part of the public record for anyone to view. The first hearing involved the science of Ibogaine. It included the testimony of Dr. Nolan Williams, Dr. Kenneth Alper, and Dr. Deborah Mash, who has been a pioneer around the development of Ibogaine's application to opioid addiction for over 30 years now. We had a second public hearing, which involved the testimonials of individuals who had received, provided, or had sent loved ones for Ibogaine treatment. All of this was done in a very high-profile and public way because we wanted the people of Kentucky to understand all aspects of this opportunity, its profundity, and the way in which it could transform not just the lives of their families, but the future of this state. That second public hearing was one of the most moving public proceedings of which I have ever been a part. And I don't know how anyone could listen to those testimonials, which included one from Governor Perry, and come away with any other conclusion but that Ibogaine must be developed as expeditiously and safely as possible for the sake of our brothers and sisters in this country. The third hearing, which occurred at the request of the University of Kentucky, which along with Andy Bashir fought this proposal every step of the way, centered on the question of whether the FDA would even consider approving clinical trials given what was repeatedly asserted as the unacceptable level of cardiac risk associated with its application. Within that hearing, we were able to procure the testimony of the scientist general who was in charge of controlled substances research at the FDA, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Javier Munez, along with his colleague, Dr. Walter Dunn, who sat on the FDA's advisory board of psychopharmacology. I believe he still sits on there. And those gentlemen, after having heard the testimony as well as questioning from the University of Kentucky's representative, which suggested that the FDA would never approve it, began their testimony by saying, "It has been asserted that the cardiac risk associated with ibogaine would disqualify it from consideration by the FDA for clinical trials. That is absolutely and completely incorrect. The question for ibogaine is not one of the existence of risk. The question is how and if that risk can be mitigated. And assuming that the drug developer can demonstrate that cardiac risk can be safely mitigated and controlled, there is no reason that we would not approve that clinical trial. And with that, the chief objection was nuked. We had one last piece of due diligence to perform before my commission, which had a membership of 9, was ready to cast a deciding vote to secure the allocation of this $42 million for what was going to be a fabulous leadership opportunity for the people of Kentucky to pioneer an entirely new field of biomedical research that will revolutionize how we treat not just addiction, but the problems that we have all sat here and talked about already. And that was the delivery of testimony from Dr. Nolan Williams following the publication of his research in the journal Nature Medicine about the neuroregenerative properties of ibogaine in the brain as applied to the veteran population with TBI and PTSD. Unfortunately, there was an election in Kentucky in 2023. My boss, Attorney General Cameron, ran for governor and lost. Andy Beshear was reelected, and a new Kentucky Attorney General took office. And while this new guy had gone in public and had expressed his open-minded willingness to give ibogaine consideration, I had briefed him individually before we had our public announcement in anticipation that he would take office. After he won, I reached out and asked if I could have an opportunity to brief him on all of the developmental energy which had gathered around this project. That energy included the commitment of 2 significant philanthropic organizations, one of which was the Jurvetson Foundation, led by Stephen and Genevieve Jurvetson. The other was the Stephen and Alexander Cohen Foundation, led by Stephen and Alexander Cohen, and then the third was the Melissa Etheridge Foundation, all of which made commitments to partner with Kentucky to make this come to pass. We had secured the commitment of 2 drug developers who were willing to establish corporate presence in Kentucky and to anchor all of their research and development activity around its advanced therapeutic applications within that state. On the cusp of success, I was brought into a meeting on December 15th with the newly elected Attorney General and members of his transition team, and what I thought was going to be an opportunity to explain and secure approval for the finalization of this project turned into an ambush meeting in which it was demanded that I resigned for having been an unapologetic advocate for ibogaine research, something that the new Attorney General found highly objectionable. I walked out of that meeting and was in shock and despair, not over the loss of my job. I was always going to be able to find another job, but for the loss of the opportunity for the long-suffering people at home who deserved to have an opportunity to transform their future with what ibogaine has the potential to do for them individually and collectively. And what has been a tremendously providential blessing, everything that happened in Kentucky was followed by a gentleman by the name of Rex Elsass. Mr. Elsass is an individual who in his prior life has been a high-level Republican campaign ad producer. His firm is one of the top campaign producing ad companies for Republican candidates across the country, in the country. Rex has a foundation called the Reed Foundation, which is named in honor of his son, Reed, who struggled for a decade with opioid addiction beginning when he was a 16-year-old in high school. Reed encountered plant medicine with an ayahuasca 5 years before he passed away. Rex became a believer in plant medicine because of the therapeutic response Reed experienced after that exposure to ayahuasca. Rex was introduced to me, ironically, by Melissa Etheridge in February of 23. He showed up at every Kentucky hearing, he showed up at our public announcement, and he said, whatever you need to help make this successful, I'm available to you anytime. The Reed Foundation stands for Rescuing Everyone in Distress, because Reed, unfortunately and tragically in 2019, died of a fentanyl overdose. Rex became involved with the Kentucky movement because he believed had Reed had an opportunity to receive ibogaine treatment, he would be alive today. When I walked out of that meeting thinking that it was all over, I called Rex and I said, they've killed it. This is over. All that work and all that effort is vanished. He said, if I can procure opportunities for you to speak to what ibogaine can do to other elected officials across the country with whom I have relationships, would you be willing to work with my foundation so that we can attempt to preserve what has been done here and transplant it to a state that has leadership with the vision and courage to complete the job that you have begun? Joe, at this point, I had staked everything that I had become by way of reputation and by way of knowledge on this opportunity. I came, just as Governor Perry has, to believe that this was the opportunity of a lifetime to generate tremendous progress on behalf of everyone who needs all of the restorative power that ibogaine can deliver. And I said, this is the mission of my life. and I will go anywhere, I will talk to anyone, and will do whatever is necessary to keep this alive. And thank the Lord, with the leadership of Governor Perry and his allyship, here we sit on the cusp of an opportunity for the state of Texas to finish the job that was begun in Kentucky, and I hope and pray with all my might that that is exactly what we see happen over the course of the next 5 months.
Well, that's an incredible journey. What are the steps now? What are the steps that need to be taken to implement this in Texas?
So, if you'll recall, I think 4 years ago, Marcus and Amber were involved with Marcus and Amber Capone were involved with the passage of a piece of legislation in Texas dealing with psilocybin, clinical trials there, and there was some concern that it was not going to. It generally takes about 3 legislative sessions for a controversial piece of legislation to get passed. In most cases, we actually passed that the first bite of the apple, so to speak. I think Alex Dominguez, who was a Democrat member of the State House, carried it. I helped. Marcus Luttrell came and supported it, as did Morgan. And I think it passed 142 to 8 in the State House. And I think it passed the Senate without any opposing votes. And it became law. And so we have already had a record that the state of Texas, a conservative red state, would support the use of in this case, a psychedelic plant medicine for the treatment of veterans. So we have this record of already supporting this. Ibogaine, and the challenge for us is to be able to educate the public about what is Ibogaine, how does it work, what's the results. And I think we're going to be able to do that. This show obviously is a good step in that direction of being able to educate the public about this extraordinary compound that has amazing results out there, giving people their lives back, resetting their brains, I mean, literally regenerating the brains, moving away from addictions with one treatment. I mean, just some stunning results when you add Parkinson's and MS with this. Then it's this broad base of being able to go out and to share with the people of the state of Texas that Texas can lead. As a matter of fact, our legislative session only lasts for 140 days every other year, which is a great concept. I wish more places would take a look at that as a way to do business. But we know that we've got to get our work done. At the same time, there's this parallel track going on in Washington, D.C. They'll take longer. It's just, that's a fact. But Texas can lead the nation here. What you started in Kentucky, and, we can sit here and browbeat this, which we won't, about why that got killed in Kentucky. But I think the leadership of Kentucky will look over their shoulder one of these days and see that they absolutely lost a great opportunity to lead the nation in the recovery of people who have lost their lives to opioids or to traumatic brain injury or to PTSD in some form or fashion. And Texas is going to wear that mantle. And I'm proud that Texas is going to lead that mantle. We've got great leadership in both the House and the Senate that understand this issue, that we're going to spend time with. To get a piece of legislation, the Texas Ibogaine Initiative, as it's going to be known, will look for those private sector partners. We'll look for most likely the VA to be a partner in this as well, and our university system. So I'm very confident that with the proper education, the openness of this legislature, the love of our veterans that we have in the state, that the Texas Ibogaine Initiative will become the law of the land for the state of Texas by September of 2025.
That's amazing. And what's the plan in terms of how do you scale this out? How do you start it?
Let's assume a successful outcome within the Texas legislature, where a $50 million appropriation out of a projected $20 billion surplus comes to pass and is signed by Governor Abbott. Once that occurs, the very first step would be to issue a notice of funding opportunity to solicit proposals from drug developers who have the capacity to develop Ibogaine as a medication for opioid use disorder. Within that notice of funding opportunity, a drug developer will be asked to provide information related to how they would design a clinical trial, how they would recruit clinical trial participants, how they would go about administering Ibogaine in such a way as to safely eliminate the cardiac risks so as to assure successful treatment outcomes without complication. And as importantly, since we are talking about the use of the people's money, how the drug developer would propose to recognize the state of Texas's perpetual interest in any patentable intellectual property that is generated as a result of this project. People in your audience should know that buprenorphine, which is the generic name for brand name Suboxone, Sublocade, and other derivatives, was created with a direct $62.5 million giveaway by the federal government to create the baseline compound. It was handed over to the pharmaceutical industry. Each company put its own twist on it, and then it proceeded to reap 100% of the return on the people's investment. That cannot and will not happen around any project associated with ibogaine that involves public money. There has to be return on investment to the state for the purposes of building out the treatment infrastructure that is needed to assure successful long-term outcomes. Bearing in mind, ibogaine gives a person the very best possible beginning that they can receive through physiological restoration to pursue what will still be a very long-term and difficult recovery process that requires the delivery of long-term integration and support services that are necessary to help someone become equipped to rebuild their lives. Once those proposals are solicited and reviewed, the drug developer that is best positioned to get this across the line, who also demonstrates their financial capacity to match the state's development investment, will be selected. Once selected, the drug developer will assume all of the legal, financial, and logistical risks associated with getting it all the way up to the FDA's approval mark. Once the FDA signs off on the conduct of clinical trials, the money of the people of Texas will go to pay for the occurrence of those clinical trials in the state of Texas at medical facilities which are equipped with the requisite level of expertise related to cardiac intervention and cardiac support, as well as anything and everything related to recovery for an individual who is opioid dependent. The beautiful aspect of Texas, as I have come to learn, is the immense amount of fabulous medical expertise that exists here. Whether we're talking about the Texas Medical Center that is in Houston, which is just a marvelous human accomplishment.
Can I add something there just a second?
Yes, sir.
I want you to go. The Texas Medical Center in Houston, Texas. There are more doctors, nurses, technicians, researchers go to work there every day than any other place in the world. It is that magnificent in it, not only its size, but its scope and its mission. You said a mouthful there, Brian, when you talked about how good Texas. You look at Baylor Scott and White, University of Texas Southwestern. I mean, we are blessed in this country to have some of the greatest medical facilities, teaching schools, research institutions, and again, Joe, this kind of gets back to why this needs to be done in Texas. I mean, I'm totally biased here. I don't, and I don't apologize for that. But our ability to do this work, to do it on a scale that is global. When this happens in the state of Texas, people around the world, whether they're in Moscow or Beijing or wherever they may be, they'll look at this and go, you know what? That is something that we would like to replicate in our country.
And I will add one other thing, and this truly is fabulous, considering where things were. 1 year and 1 day ago, I sat down and wrote my resignation letter over this. While Texas stands the opportunity to be the leader, right now, there are high-level organizational efforts underway to join Texas in this endeavor within the states of Ohio, Washington State, Arizona, which includes the involvement of outgoing U.S. Senator Kirsten Sinema, who's ready to roll up her sleeves and help activists there and researchers on the ground, including Dr. Sue Sisley, who's been at this for decades. New Mexico, Missouri. All of these are states in which there are individuals who are committed to helping Texas finish the job that was begun in Kentucky. And for my people at home, I'm going to use this opportunity to say that there is one incredibly brave state legislature who is the only elected physician to serve in the Kentucky legislature by the name of Senator Donald Douglas. Senator Douglas recognizes, based on his medical training, what a profound opportunity this is. Dr. Douglas, along with some other concerned citizens within the state of Kentucky, aims to take up the gauntlet when the legislature reconvenes in January to see to it that Kentucky's opportunity to participate in this is salvaged. And I look forward to doing whatever I can to help get my people at home right alongside Texas to make this a reality.
This is very, very encouraging. It's very fantastic. It really is. I mean, the way you've described this is so fantastic. It's just so eloquent. And Governor Perry, what you've done is just sticking your neck out and having this profound purpose and this desire to accomplish this. It's so encouraging, and it's something that I just didn't think that I was going to see. And I don't think it would have had the impact if it hadn't come from a Republican former governor like yourself. I mean, I just don't think that people would be considering it. When I first found out that you were getting interested in this, involved in this, I was like, what? What's going on? Governor Perry? Really? He's pushing for ibogaine? I think it's going to open up a lot of people's eyes, and it's going to allow people that have never even considered this to maybe take a second look.
Well, I certainly hope that, regardless of anybody's politics, and this isn't a Republican or a Democrat issue, this is just a human well-being issue. This is about
Yes.
how do we take care of our, in our case. And somebody said, why are you so focused on the veterans? And I said, well, it's partly the way I was raised, and my father and his World War II B-17 tail gunner time in the 8th Air Force, and him teaching me to you need to give back to your country, and you need to give back to your state, you need to give back to your community, you need to find that place to go volunteer. I was taught that by a wonderful, loving father and mother, and the going off to school, serving in the Air Force, having this heart for veterans, being the commander-in-chief of the Texas forces as we sent our young men and women off to this war against terror in 2003, and being engaged with them, traveling over to Iraq and Afghanistan multiple times while I was the governor and then as the Secretary of Energy, to be in their presence, to know this extraordinary group of young men and women who are willing to sacrifice their lives literally for us. And then when they've been wounded, both physically and mentally, and they come home, and we did such a poor job of taking care of recognizing what we had done to them and the lack of our ability. I was overcome with seeing the private sector trying to help. Ross Perot Sr., one of the greatest patriots I ever met in my life. What he did to help veterans who had been hurt during the war on terror. I mean, literally hundreds of young men and women who he gave wonderfully to. Seeing people like that, and then our government failed. And for me, this is, I spent 40 years in public service. I think we do it pretty good in Texas by and large, but we don't do it perfect, I get that. But what drove me and what still drives me is that we owe these young men and women everything that we can put together. And if there is a treatment out there, whether it's been put on Schedule 1 or not, we owe it to them to find a way to make it available to them. And so the veteran community is really special to me. I love them. But they're also the easiest population to go sell to the general public. So if, this whole thing about psychedelics and what we've been taught for 60 years that they're bad, stay away from them, educating the public that the dose is the poison and everything. This is a two-edged sword here. Everything can be used for good, or everything can be used for bad. And what we found here in the compound of Ibogaine is that, as you warned people about in your remarks, about don't go out there and buy it off the internet and go self-medicate yourself, because there's a real opportunity that it wouldn't turn out good. But properly dosed, properly diagnosed, properly dosed, properly administered, properly followed up with, this can be a compound that literally can change millions of lives. At the start, we're focused on veterans because of the PTSD, the traumatic brain injury, the challenges that they've got. But when you look at the further populations out there, we worked pretty hard in the state of Texas to come up with ways to not send people to prison. We put criminal justice reform in place in the early 2000s here. And it was a model. As a matter of fact, it was the model that President Trump used to put national criminal justice reform in place, to be able to intervene before people ever went to prison, before they would become professional criminals. And it's that same concept here, that we need to find ways to keep people out of prison, keep people off the streets. And in a lot of those cases, Joe, it's substance abuse that got them there. It's some mental health challenge that started them down the road of using either alcohol or some of these other substances. And if we have at our disposal, we have here a plant that God gave us that we can use, and literally it appears in a lot of cases, one treatment, and it takes away your desire to have another drink of alcohol. One treatment and save a person like Reed Elsas's life because of fentanyl. I mean, if we've got that in our grasp, I mean, how bad you got to hate people to not make that available to them?
Yeah. And the other thing that you were talking about, Brian, is the profound effect that it has on the people that have experienced it, where they recognize that they are truly connected to the divine, and that imagine all these downtrodden, forgotten people that are just cast out of society and prison, instead of having them continue this path, if there's something that can put them on a completely different path, a path of positivity, a path of integration in society, a path of love, we can change the tone of the country. We can, the whole world.
Amen. You have just hit for me what this is all about. We have sat here and talked about TBI and PTSD, the horrors and the cruelty of war that 20 years of conflict has put upon innocent young men and women of this country who have volunteered to go and lay their lives down for her, who have had to come back and beg for access to what can alleviate their suffering. We've sat here and talked about the opioid epidemic, its monstrosities, the way in which it is the gravest engineered humanitarian catastrophe to play out in this country's history. All of these are symptoms of profound spiritual affliction, which is destroying the core of what the United States has always been. The greatest attribute that Ibogaine has is its ability to affirm the reality of our human divinity. We are not the result of a random accident of astrophysics and chemistry. We are the images of an eternal creator who put us here for a purpose, to be able to see and perceive the creator's majesty as reflected most especially within us as individual human beings who have received the gift of love, of perception, of discernment, and the ability to connect to the majestic eternal love of that creator. Ibogaine delivers it. I can attest to the fact that it delivers it. My wife and I traveled to Tijuana a year ago. She has been on Celexa for 21 years to manage symptoms of a profound mood disorder, which manifested through psychotic mood swings that have affected her since the birth of her son. I have known her for 23 years, and when we decided, I'll back up to this. If I were going to be an advocate for this, I thought that it was necessary to take my own medicine. If I'm going to get out here and advocate for it, I need to be brave enough to man up and to receive it. And so the week after Thanksgiving of last year, by deliberate choice and at the invitation of Jonathan Dickinson and Trevor Miller, I traveled down to Tijuana along with my wife to receive Ibogaine to understand what it would do. My wife decided that she wished to receive it as well. She is very much a left-brain rationalist and was not someone who came to the realm of psychedelics with any degree of enthusiasm, but she wanted to see if there was the potential that she could be freed of her necessity to take Celexa every day. Before we went down, I was told that she would have to be completely Celexa-free for 5 days, because if the SSRI was in her system, it would defeat Ibogaine's therapeutic restoration. When they told me that, I was in despair, because I said there is no way that I will ever be able to get her to Mexico after 5 days without Celexa. In fact, if we go 1 day without her taking it, I can't be in the house with her. It is unbearable, it is dangerous, and it cannot happen. We will not be able to make it. They said, we're going to give you a regimen of supplementation to give her that will keep her stable. She's going to get edgy, but you'll get her down here. Joe, we went down there. We received it on Tuesday evening, November the 28th. My wife took her last Celexa on November 23rd of 2023, and she has not had one since.
Let's go.
Before we came here, we went to Beyond, and we received Ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT there as well, in order to understand how each operation effectuates the safe delivery of this medication. And what I can personally attest, for me and for her, collectively and together, Ibogaine paired with 5-MeO DMT has been the most profound spiritual experience either of us have ever encountered. I am 100% persuaded that these substances are divine medications that are engineered from on high so that we can heal what we do to ourselves, what we do to each other, and be affirmed by the love of our Creator, which is eternal and almighty.
Agreed.
Amen. If you believe in God, you have to believe if God created these things and people are aware of these things, that they're there for a purpose.
There is no greater gift we can give to our brothers and sisters in this society than to affirm the love of their Creator for Him. If that had not been affirmed for me as a child, I would not be sitting here. It is the single most important thing that we can do, and its therapeutic benefits on the physiology of a human being is another affirmation of the realities that we're sitting here talking about.
For the people listening, is there anything that they can do to get involved to help?
Well, obviously, from a public standpoint in the state of Texas, if you have relationships with your state rep, your state senators, the governor, Let them know that you're spending some time learning about this and you're supportive of it. For the veterans, particularly, we're going to be doing major outreaches into the veteran community. At the same time that this is going on in Texas, you're going to be seeing a movement across the country at the federal level, at the congressional level. There's a number of the members of the legislature are very supportive of this. You've got, as I mentioned, with the incoming, hopefully the incoming administration of President Trump, Bobby Kennedy, Jay Bhattacharya, Dr. Oz, a number of folks. Hopefully, the rumor factory is that potentially Nolan Williams might be being considered for a position in the administration as well on the mental health side of things. There's never been a time to see the cards kind of being laid out on the table in a good way that we're going to have a winning hand here like we have right now. So one of my goals is to educate the public. There's a young lady that's going to be helping us here in Texas, Ann Claire Stapleton. Ann Claire was a former CNN international reporter. She's going to be coming in to Texas to help with the Texas Ibogaine initiative to educate the media. That's a very important goal and role that we're going to be playing, making sure that the men and women out there in the news business understand this compound, understand what we're going to be doing, and so the education of the public. I'm convinced, Joe, that once the general public understands what this is, how it works, how it can be used in such a wonderful therapeutic way, and that the lives that can be saved, literally the lives that can be saved, at that particular point in time, then I think this becomes a bit of a no-brainer, so to speak, and the general public will get behind this in a powerful way, and at that particular point in time, then it's about a question that you asked that's really important. How do you structure getting the treatment centers, getting the people trained? That's going to be it's a good problem to have, and I look forward to working with both the Texas medical community and the Texas legislature and the Texas citizenry at large to deal with it. We can. I'm excited about it, but I think, again, it has the potential to be as profound a positive impact on the practice of medicine, particularly in psychiatry, in the history of either of those.
I agree. Anything else, gentlemen?
One thing I'd like to add from a technical perspective, and then if it's all right, I'll finish out with some observations that I've come to through those years of service that we've discussed. When it comes to how to do this, Governor Perry and I were able to recognize the blessing of a legion of people who've been working at this for decades in obscurity and at great risk. We will be able, hopefully, around this project to bring all those who have labored around Ibogaine for years now and to draw upon their expertise as to how best to deliver what I would describe as the platinum standard model for an Ibogaine-based treatment and recovery system that maximizes all of its therapeutic benefits, whether they be for substance use disorder, polysubstance use disorder, TBI, PTSD, or other degenerative conditions that have significant detrimental impact on the brain. And I'll finish my part of this discussion with this. We have sat here and talked about specific reality and the way in which public policy has impacted it and what its potentials are to generate human progress. As you know, there are a variety of faith traditions around the world which have common themes within them. Those themes are often told within those faith traditions as parables.
Agreed.
What your audience has listened to with us is a parable about contemporary American society and where we are. I think most folks would agree that we find ourselves in the midst of an existential struggle for this country's survival. We are living within the most beautifully dynamic multicultural society which has ever existed in human history. For all of our material wealth and technological prowess, we are also living in a brutally dehumanizing era that is hostile to individual identity. Citizens are viewed as fungible revenue units who are plugged into a set of actuarial variables designed to reduce their lives to reasonably predictable revenue streams.
Indeed.
We find ourselves with massive government systems which enthrone themselves on the subjugation of powerless people.
Let's go.
Those systems commodify problems that they are supposed to solve, and they monetize sustained human misery. Government must be made to function honestly, accountably, and responsibly to the genuine needs of the American people. Because if it does not, our society will inevitably collapse beneath the enormity of its corrupt decrepitudes. This is going to require a shift in social consciousness that is rooted in our universal kinship as images of an eternal creator whose essence is almighty unconditional love for all of us. As your listeners hear this episode, I hope that they will hope and pray for everyone who has gathered around this cause that we will be successful. Because if we are, we will hasten the day when we can deliver good tidings unto the meek, bind up the brokenhearted, proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound. Lord, hasten the day. And thank you for the privilege of sitting with you this afternoon.
Thank you. It was my privilege. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Gentlemen, you're doing an amazing thing. I have great hope. I have great hope for this country, and more so since this election than in a long time. And I think with your work and this new administration's openness to these ideas, I think we have an amazing opportunity in front of us. Thank you very much for everything you've done. Thank you. All right. Goodbye.
Here I come. Agreed.
The enemy's middle tower has fallen.
Indeed.
Thank you for doing this. My pleasure. Do you want to sit here?
Yes. I thought as much. Forward. On.
The enemy's top tower has fallen.
To battle. I move. Faster. Agreed. Down you go. I move. On. Swiftly. I thought as much.
Make way for your queen.
Into the breach. The ice wolves bite. Fangs of ice.
Unstoppable.
I'll freeze you fast.
Has fallen
Battle.
to the Radiant.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
Here I come. Indeed. I'll not argue. Faster. Forward.
Hi?
Yes.
You with him? The fuck?
Let's go. On. That's nice.
Damage.
Let's go. Die. Swiftly. move.
We have revenge.
I thought as much.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
Into the breach.
Further, I gotta get fucking.
Faster.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
I'll not argue.
Running at dead heroes, so.
Agreed. Forward. To battle. Indeed.
Come on, Jug. Jug, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Here I come. I'm under attack.
Dire structures are fortified.
Yes. I move. Here I come. I'll not argue.
Ulted there instead of swift slashing. That's still the
Attack!
The enemy's middle tower has fallen.
Here's icing the
The
ride.
enemy's middle barracks have fallen.
Fangs of ice.
The enemy's middle barracks have fallen.
Swift and out.
You just had to take melee runs instead of running, so. A bit longer now.
Forward.
Dire structures are fortified.
I thought as much. Into the breach. Down you go.
Your bottom tower is under attack. Radiant structures are
Faster.
fortified.
Agreed.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
To battle.
Your bottom tower has fallen.
It's the same retarded Jug from last game, it's it. Bomb the Jug.
Swift as the wolves of Ice Rack.
Fuses don't ever have
Indeed. Yes. I'm under attack.
What are you buying?
Into the breach. Forward. I'll not argue. Here I come. Not I thought as much.
The enemy's bottom tower has fallen.
Ice, take you. Yes. Indeed.
The enemy's bottom tower has fallen.
Down.
The enemy's bottom barracks have
go.
fallen. Your top tower is under attack.
On. Agreed. Swiftly.
The enemy's top tower has fallen. The enemy's top barracks
I move. Oh. Faster. I'll not argue. Let's go.
The enemy's
same trick again. Come on.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Flagrant. Today is the second coming of a dear, brave, courageous friend of ours who has kind of just absolutely exploded. I mean, he had a weekend in New York where he was not only headlining Madison Square Garden, he was not only the musical guest for SNL, he was not only performing for all of Central Park or something. I don't even know what that was crazy. He managed, this is what a mensch this guy is, he managed to even make time to come out and see one of my little stand-up shows at the Comedy Cellar. Give it up for our dear friend, Jelly Roll. I have to say, like, I was telling my wife this, I felt like so guilty because I promised my wife that we would go out, to this place in the Hamptons we have. And I was like, I promised we would go, and then your weekend in New York happened. And I was just like, you know, this is the one weekend away. We're away every single weekend on the road, and everything was crazy with the special, and I'm like, I feel so bad. I'm gonna miss. I'm like, all right, at least I'll make MSG. Don't make. At least I'll make MSG. I'm feeling like the worst fucking friend. And you could have let me feel okay by just leaving, but instead you're like, I'll just come to you, baby. I'll just come to one of your shows. That's what a fucking great guy you are. Yeah, you're a great guy. But you feel like a real piece of shit. Tell me, Doug. Tell me. You're a piece of shit. Why?
Because we went to that show. They came the boys did represent on y'all's behalf.
You should have charged them.
First, just know, I am a traveling man, buddy.
Yes.
So y'all know me in real life. No, I felt that in my soul, man, because God knows if me and Bunny get a weekend away, man, listen, I don't care if Jesus comes to Nashville to perform. God, you know how much I love the Lord. Man, we finally got us a weekend, baby. Come on, man.
God bless.
God is everywhere.
Dude, he'll come to us. He's been coming to me.
You're getting skinny now. How much are you down?
Dude, I'm down 100.
This globe is...
It's the first time I've got to say it. I'm down 100.
You're down 100.
That's awesome.
3 digits.
I'm down 100.
How's Dick game?
Man, crazy. It's coming back. Now, listen, me and my wife, me and my wife just had this conversation because, you know, I've struggled with my weight my whole life, and she's seen me get really big and seen me lose weight before. So I was like, yo, am I tripping, or is like it not... It was a lot faster last time as far as even losing the weight and getting the dick back. So I was like, am I tripping? And she's like, listen, my wife is the most honest human on earth. She goes, Daddy, you're a little older now. We might have to just get that thing cut off. Because I'm like a kangaroo with a pouch above my pecker. You know what I'm saying? When I lose weight, the pouch goes back, the pecker comes out. So I found myself in this juxtaposition where I'm losing the weight here, but the pouch is still pouching. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I got to look exactly.
Oh, that's fire.
So it's so... No, it's not
No, that's fire, dude. Because the dick is warm, always.
You know what I love about y'all? It's my big album week. This is how we started. We're talking about my pecker on the biggest podcast. Good to see y'all again.
I like this. I like this, that you have that nice little area. That's because you got to make her work for it.
Listen,
I'm back in warning. It's like a hand warmer for a quarterback.
This is now on you. No, I feel good though, man. I'm losing weight. I was telling you, that's why we quit talking about it. I'm hitting that moment where you start to hit a stride in it.
Okay. In weight loss or just in life?
In everything.
Yeah,
like just the clarity. The clarity's coming with the weight loss, the music, the writing, the tour, the production. But even down to like my discipline of like, I don't want to say I've overcome it, but dude, I haven't ate anything. It's been so long, I don't even think about it.
Really?
Like, I just thought about this the other day, that I've been such an obese human and fought food addiction so long, Andrew, that I would walk into rooms and make assessments of what was in there that I could snack on.
You're like Jason Bourne.
Literally. I feel like on some super fat shit. I'd be like, yo, there's a can of Snickers, I got a little bowl here, there's some pretzels there. These kind of things. You know how to be having the cans with the little baby Snickers on. Don't act like y'all don't see them. Baby Snickers.
I like that. I like that. You're thinking outside the box.
Yeah, and now it's like, man, I'm in the dressing room the other day, and there was I didn't even notice the candy in the dressing room until somebody said, do you want one of these?
Oh,
and then I was like, I'm not even thinking like that no more. Like, it's just not even. I remember when I caught that with drugs.
Yeah.
Like the first time that I found myself in an environment where people were doing cocaine, and I wasn't like, got to get out of the room. You know what I mean? I was just like, oh yeah, I used to do that. That was all right. You know what I mean? Like, we had a lot of fun.
You struggle with drugs, like you said. My family, we have a lot of addiction, but like I noticed my dad. No, that's pleasure. That's fun. Addiction's not fun.
Right. It's just families.
But no, I noticed like my brother stopped drinking, my dad stopped drinking, and went to food. I have a little bit of a food thing too, but they're the same. It's just like an addictive personality. You let go of one for a lesser one, and then eventually, hopefully, you let go of food for maybe work or whatever. But like, you think that's just a progression of it?
I'm not 100% sure, because I was fat and doing cocaine at the same time. I could juggle fucking chainsaw with that skill set. You know? But I found myself, I don't know, man. I think it's for me is I'm just starting to do the real work on me, and I'm starting to really come to peace and find myself in situations. And
what does that entail, to work on you?
As cliche as it sounds, I've done like a lot of like therapy, just a lot of self-help, a lot of what I consume. You know, I didn't realize that not just what I was consuming was making me huge and making me feel bad and inflamed, but what I was listening to, the kind of stuff, the rabbit holes I found myself going in, like these, you know, just like darker shit.
Comedy
you know what
podcast?
I mean? No. That's the shit that gets me out of it. It's like, I can laugh about this. This would like, you find yourself in just like, you know, dark holes of just what you even listen to or intake, or and then your timeline becomes full of it. You know what I mean? Like, dude,
that's the problem with the algorithm.
Yeah, it's the Wild West, dude. You accidentally stumble on one dude getting his head blown off in Venezuela, and for 3 days you're like, I can't touch my phone. It's nuts, man. You know what I mean? It's wild. But I get in those paths for me wasn't always internet rabbit holes. These are the self ones that I struggle with. You know what I mean? When I just get alone in these little rabbit holes, and I'm doing better at those now, man. I'm just thinking better, dude. I'm fucking feeling better.
I knew you were doing well, man. I knew that you were making like ridiculous money because you brought a guy out to dinner with us, and you said, "This is my philanthropy guy."
What? Wow. Are you Mr. Beast?
I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, he handles all my philanthropy."
I like that.
That's a different level of money when you're like, other people need some of this money.
Yeah. This is the guy that gives it away.
Yeah, you got a guy to give away your money.
Yeah, we're married for that. We don't need people.
That is a problem.
We don't need like.
You need a guy to stop her from giving it away. She thinks Hermes is a charity. This French motherfucker's making billions.
We're 16 minutes in, and I'm like, I fucked up. Why do I do this every time?
Just like, Beautifully Broken, stream it. Stream it right now. Beautifully Broken.
Beautifully broke, real quick.
Beautifully Broke is the rest of us. Scott owns his masters. Okay? Fuck. God damn, man. I mean, this guy, and he was like a handsome, he looked like Billy Crudup. I thought he was Billy Crudup for the whole time. I was like, oh my God, we got fucking Billy Crudup with us. Like,
you know, the best part is it was such a Schultz moment. I often forget, you and Tony are my two friends that I forget about this until I'm out with y'all.
Oh, yeah, I know where you're going.
That y'all are knife of men. You know what I'm saying? You're just like a knife of a man. You know what I mean?
I think I know what you mean.
Right? You get it like the room, my dude is quietly observing. He's maybe interjected once or twice, but just enough for Schultz to go, doop, doop. Yeah. So how do you fit into this? What's your story?
Because I didn't get it. I was like, why the fuck is Billy Crudup right here with us eating sushi at Zero Bombs?
The way you are with Tandy, bro, that's how he is with gossip.
I needed to make sense of it. And then Jelly goes, oh, that's my philanthropy guy. I'm like, damn, Billy Crudup doing rough right now, bro. Like,
that was
he's
the
a
worst
philanthropy guy?
Yeah, that was the worst way to frame him. His name's Miles Adcox. He does look a lot like him in that one picture. But he actually does a lot of, in the mental health space, he owns a big company called Onsite in Tennessee. There's one in San Diego. It's like a mental wellness retreat. It's done a lot for me and my wife.
If you're depressed in San Diego, kill yourself.
Yeah, right.
What the fuck are you doing? How do you even do that?
San Diego is nice.
This hotline that's on the screen right now.
No, it's over. It's over.
Nah, San Diego.
How do you find a way to depress San Diego? How do you find that bitch? You know what I mean? Position in Anchorage or something.
This is already a good voice. Let's fucking go.
It was going so well for Jelly, man. He really did. Completely crossed over.
It was going so good.
It was going so well.
I'm glad I did this after Saturday Night Live.
Exactly.
Never run into that.
Exactly. He just hit his stride.
My publicist is firing me tomorrow.
You should have learned from the music video last time.
Every time we hang out, it's just a little dip. But then it goes even higher.
Yeah.
It goes down to go up.
It's how it worked. That's the asshole army, babe.
All right, we gotta get Billy Crudup off the
I keep looking at it like, I'm scared me. I don't even remember what he was in. No, but I came in and I was like, look, man, we do give away a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I was like, I do need somebody to help me. I can't. Man, I feel so bougie saying this.
No, because
but y'all will relate because this is just real life. This is how I would talk when we went on the pod. I just have too much incoming to give anything the proper time it deserves almost. You know what I mean? Like in any major decision. But when I know that I feel like it's been on my heart that I need to
give back.
So he's so cool. He's got such a big infrastructure for his other business. He'll just put his people on it. Like, we all, go find, this is what he wants to do. He wants to do this amount of soup kitchens, this amount of juvenile facilities. And now it's caused a chain reaction where when I go to venues, now you know how venues give us our gifts when we play these arenas? You've been doing them longer than me. We get gifts. They give you jerseys and a box and all kind of stuff. Everyone tries to give you something cooler in the last arena. It's the coolest shit ever. But now they'll always all donate a check to a charity in that city in like honor of what they know I stand for.
So you still get the jersey, right?
Yeah, I'll still get the jersey.
Don't give it to them kids.
The Boston Celtics let me hold the thing.
I saw that. That was sick.
It was crazy.
Yeah,
man.
they got like 18 of them.
You know what's crazy is I stood over and took pictures for like 3 minutes before they were like, you can touch it. I was like, I wish I'd have been finger fucking this 3 minutes. You know what I'm saying? It was crazy. Yeah, so now it's become a thing where, I have a guy that really, he's a great guy, man. So he helps with that because we try to do a lot, man. We try to also help as many people.
I mean, you're a great guy.
You're the great connector, I've realized, because you have this song. Oh, that was it. You also did Fallon. We were watching Fallon that night. I can't believe I left out one of the things that was part of that weekend as well. So you and MGK do Fallon. MGK is hanging out with you. Also, great guy.
Great guy. That's why I'm bringing. That's why.
Great guy.
I'm taking him on.
Yeah. It was funny. We had this moment where he was like, "Yeah, I don't understand. Why don't people think that I'm like a nice guy sometimes?" And I'm like, "Well, let's look at the outfits a little." And I remember he like looked at something. He was like, "Okay, I get that one." I get that. He was wearing like a pig furry shirt. He's like, "Yeah, that one I get." He's like, "No, I like wearing stupid shit, but that was a little far."
Yeah, that was the best because he'd go, "I stand on that one, but yeah, that one was horrible." Yeah, it's so funny to watch you and him have that moment.
No, he was a great dude, and that is what often happens. I think in this business is that you might have a perception of people, and then you get to a point where you start meeting them, and you're like, a lot of times surprised at them being like really nice people and like sweet people.
All right, Cucks, let's do some dates. January 9th through 11th. I don't know why they gave me those dates, to be honest with you, now that I think about it. Side Splitters in Tampa. I feel a little way about that. I'm going to be honest. January 23rd to 25th, Sacramento. Those tickets will sell out. I promise you. They sold out 2 years ago, and I wasn't even really selling tickets back then. January 31st through February 1st, West Des Moines, Iowa. Again, I cannot believe there's an East Des Moines, but West Des Moines, Iowa, I'm going to be at the Funny Bone. February 21st and 22nd, I'm going to be in Brea, California. You know you guys love me. February 28th through March 1st, I'm going to be in Nashville, Tennessee. We got more dates coming. I think I'm going to be in San Diego one of those times as well. Either way, guys, come through. Love y'all. AkashSingh.com for tickets. Thank you so fucking much. This year was awesome. Sold out, I think, shows for 6 months straight. This weekend, the first show I didn't sell out. But still such a fucking awesome year. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the show.
The interesting thing about that is you're with MGK. You have a song with MGK. You also have a song with Eminem.
Yeah.
Oh,
these guys are mortal enemies.
Yeah.
And somehow you are so talented that you are positioned in between both of them, and they're like, I still want to work with Jelly Roll.
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Man, the first thing is honesty.
Okay.
Right, you got to come into both parties honest.
How do you talk to M?
Well, so Paul is, and I always bring up Paul in interviews because I feel like he never gets brought up enough.
Paul Rosenberg.
Paul Rosenberg has been Eminem's manager since Eminem's had a manager.
Okay.
Lifelong Detroit homie kind of shit. Like really cool inception story. Cool story about Eminem is his I believe his publicist, his assistant, who kind of runs the record label. I don't want to call her assistant because she's so much more.
Sure.
But he's had like the same 4 people around him for his entire career.
Wow.
Entire career.
Amazing.
Here I come.
So you don't really talk to, he's the wizard, man. He's the biggest selling artist of our generation. He sold more records than Elvis. You know what I mean? I mean, it's insane when you think about how big. You don't really get to see the wizard a lot.
Yeah.
But I've seen the wizard now and hung out with him, and he's a fucking great guy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? He's really down to earth. He's super honest, and he's very intentional with his words. And we hung out on video set for 12 hours. Wow. Just like dicking around. To show you his personality, he walks in my green room going, "Somebody shave me. I need some Jim Dad." So he gets you a deal there. And just fucking funny guy.
The first interaction
the first thing, the first one we have when we're singing. I'll tell you that story too, but just let me praise Paul for 2 more minutes.
Okay,
He deserves it. Paul has always been trying to get me and M together. Like every time I've seen Paul, he's like, if Marshall don't understand anybody else, he's going to get you. When he gets you, he's going to get you. And he's telling me this for since I met him when he was working with Yellow Wolf a decade ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know what I mean? So Paul has been that champion for me the whole way. So Paul calls and he's like, "Send me the Save Me record." And I'm like, "Y'all mind if I tell the story first? Because it's hard to get into all this. Because I don't think I've told this one like his. So Paul calls and he's like, "Send the stems to the Save Me record." He calls John Manili, my manager. Now keep in mind, John Manili managed Jay for a while. So they've already worked. They're friends for real for 30 years now. They've been in the business together for 25 years. So he hits John Manili. He's like, "Yo, send over Save Me. I think Marshall wants to fuck with it." And that's all he said. So you know me, I'm like, you know how rap works. I'm like, I'm fixing to get an Eminem remix. Like, he's just gonna drop a verse in my lap one day. Like, I don't know when, I don't care. Whenever it comes, just thank you, God, And I had already told Kells that story back then. And Kells is a real friend. Where Kells is just like, "Yo, that's huge. Keep me posted." You know what I'm saying? Like, he's cheering for me. Like, at heart, his heart is like, you know what I mean? Like, "Yo, man, you don't have a problem."
Kells being MGK.
Kells being MGK. He's like, "Yo, you don't have a problem." So this is like, I probably shouldn't town stamp it too much, but this is 18 months ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I get to the point, I don't think it's coming.
Yeah.
I'm kind of just like, it didn't happen. It's whatever, it works. And then I get the call, it's like, "Yo, what's going on the record?" It's closing the record. I'm like, "What?" Second single, they want to shoot a video. Now, keep in mind, me and Kells we hung out at the Grammys. We had both lost, and we ended up on what we call the loser tour that night. We went to all these weird, crazy Illuminati parties. It felt like it was so fucking weird, dude. And we went to 3 or 4 of them. It was no baby oil bashes. But I went in and we went to all these weird parties, and he had played me the idea for Lonely Road that night. So this is 3-4 months after me and Kells have already worked on 2 or 3 records together. We're hanging out every day. I'm in LA a bunch. I don't have a friend out there. I only know him.
Yeah.
It's like, still, you talk about when I pull up on you, Bubba, you're my only friend here. What do you mean I'm gonna pull up on you? I don't know nobody. You know what I'm saying? You're my only friend.
Well, that makes me feel less special.
No. I'm saying, like, I love you. I'm looking for my brother. You know what I'm saying? So me and him are hanging every day, and I'm like, "Yo, this Eminem thing's real." I was like, it's fixing to come out, and they want to do all this. Now we're already in there. Now on the other side, John's having to do straight business with Paul. Like, "Hey, Paul, You know, Kels and Jelly have known each other for 15 years on and off. They were beefing. Jelly dissed him. I was a hater back then. It's a whole other fun story. Yeah. It's like, but they, they're buddies. And here's where Paul's a good dude too. Paul's like, yo, man, we love Jelly, man. Appreciate you telling us.
Yeah.
Never got brought up.
Wow.
My heart is always to bring them together one day because I see so much more of them in each other than they know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, I hadn't really brought it up to Marshall yet because I'm still kind of glad that I'm still in that circumference to be able to have them conversations. Yeah. But I do see, like, there's so much more in them than not. But like I also gave Kel some perspective, too. It's like, we all grew up watching Eminem take over the game early. Like, if you got mentioned in an Eminem song, it was like getting mentioned in a comedy special. Yeah. You were on fucking fire. Yeah. You couldn't be hotter if you got mentioned in an Eminem special or an HBO special. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? An Eminem song or an HBO special is what you wanted your name to be brought up.
I also think that beef between MGK and Eminem, like that verse from MGK was, I think, the most...
It's underrated, actually.
I thought it was rated. Like, I think most people looked at that and they were like, whoa, this was way better than I thought. Yes. And then I think Eminem's verse, I don't think people thought that he absolutely knocked them out the park. Like, I thought that the reaction to it was, this is more competitive than we thought it was going to be. So I think that MGK's respect went up.
Well, what's interesting is over time, it's changed. In the moment, I remember that being the response. And now when people look back on it, they're like, oh, Eminem ended MGK's rap career. Because MGK transitioned into other stuff. And so I think the narrative got rewritten that way. Well, but I remember in the moment, people being like, yo, I don't think MGK necessarily got destroyed. But
the only thing I'll say to touch on this, because I'm on a slippery slope.
Yeah, you got to just not.
Is everything Andrew just said right now, I want the flagrant listeners to know. He said to MGK, I watch y'all have the same conversation, which I think is super cool. But here's how I feel. Look, man, they're going to get together one day eventually. It's inevitable. The world's a circle. You know what I mean? And I think that they're going to find each other's heart more than they don't. And if they never do connect that way, I think that it did more for both of them than it did to hurt either one of them. Yeah. Whether either party ever fully acknowledged that. What MGK did after that, I don't think had anything to do with the beef as much as just heart and what his spirit was music. Because he technically dropped, I think, Hotel Diablo was the project right after the end. Don't quote me. But it was it was the mainstream sellout, and it was the Tickets to My Downfall that changed. Yeah. We're talking about a couple of the biggest albums. They'll go down as the biggest albums of this generation in pop, in pop punk and punk rock, and maybe in rock and roll, like new music from new recording artists. In 10 years of rock music, I think those albums will be the biggest selling.
So that's the thing that, like,
let that one sit.
Yeah, no, and I told him this shit too. Like, what I saw is him as a rapper, knew him as a rapper. Then I saw him become an arena act rock star. Yeah. And I knew that I was getting old because I was like, what is happening? What happened? Did you feel that way as well?
I didn't know when to switch out of.
But he went to arenas. Yeah. And so something must have been resonating with the rock music on a different level than rap. I also think it's hard to be like an arena rap star. Like, how many arena rap acts are there?
You know, we were talking about this before. And
it's like stadium.
Yeah, Eminem Stadium for sure. Eminem Stadium.
But like arenas around, like Drake.
Hold on, let's go a step deeper. Eminem's a +1 at most stadiums.
So he could do 2 stadium shows.
He's a +1 at most stadiums in there.
That's great. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's like Taylor Swift shit.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
Wow. Yeah, he was Taylor of rap. That's
crazy. Yeah, even now to this day. Like,
but it's like, what are the arena acts? It's like Kendrick, Nicki. I think Nicki's built like this unbelievable following.
Nicki did arenas. She came to Asheville.
Travis Scott.
Travis. I don't know. Who is Megan and Glow? Is it Megan and Glow the package right now? Because they're doing arenas right now. Megan and Glow together are doing arenas.
But that's still packaged. Like, I'm curious, and maybe Megan's big enough.
Red hot.
Yeah.
I fucking love everything. She is so Memphis. First of all, she's the best human ever. Like, when I met her, I was like, I grew up going back and forth to Memphis my whole life, like coming up under 3 6 Mafia. I was like, please let her be as Memphis as it looks. Yeah. Let her, like, off camera, let it be as Memphis as it looks. Oh, she is so Memphis. She is. It's like talking to Project Pat. It is awesome, dude. It is incredible how Memphis she is. But they're full blown arenas now.
No, they're killing.
Hold on, who in the backpack rap space?
Say again?
I hate to use that phrase, but like, who from that space? Suicide Boys are doing an arena tour right now. Whether you acknowledge them as rappers or not, I think they're sick as shit. I love the Suicide Boys. But I know they're doing arenas because we're on their ass every night. They're playing Tuesdays and Thursdays like us. Wow. And they're selling almost clean everywhere they're going.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, it's just a rare thing. It's like, especially in the rap space, it's rarefied air. It's listened to as rap music is.
When they did the West Coast package, I remember they did like whatever they labeled the West Coast package, it had Cube.
Oh, I mean, when 50 went back out.
50 went out and did it.
He was doing it. But then again, you got one of the biggest rappers ever. It's like Kanye. Yeah. It's just a hard thing for rappers to do. For whatever reason, for as much as we listen to rap, as popular as rappers are, as like seen and noticed and recognized, it doesn't translate to ticket sales in the way that like maybe country does, definitely doesn't as rock. EDM, you could argue, is like over-indexed. There are EDM DJs that I have no fucking clue their name. There's an EDM DJ. named Anima, that is doing the Sphere in Las Vegas, and they've added shows, so now they're at like 6 or 7 shows or something like that for New Year's Eve plus others. Did you guys know who this guy was? I mean, no disrespect to him.
I did. You guys did.
You did. You know Fred again?
Oh, he's great.
That guy's fucking massive.
Fred again was on our new artist Grammy list this year. That's how I kind of got hip to him, you know? And I was joking with Noah about it. We were joking about all the who all we were. Me, Noah, and I think Gracie Abrams were all talking at the table. And I said, the funny part of this is, Fred, I don't even think Fred again came to the Grammys, by the way. I'm not sure. I don't think he even showed up. Yeah. But if he did, I didn't get to meet him. And he's going to make more money than all of us put together when it's all said.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's doing crazy. He's doing a stadium show where he'll like have a B stage in like the nosebleeds.
They did a wild thing. They did a... Okay, I'm gonna fuck this up probably, but with MSG, what they wanted to do is go on sale the day before the show. So they wanted 24-hour notice, and I think that they couldn't because of like a Ticketmaster regulation, some shit like that. So then maybe it was like a few days. They sell it out immediately, and then they do the show, and then for the show, I'm gonna butcher this, and somebody will fucking correct me, whatever. They keep the lights on. I think they start the show at like in the afternoon, and they keep the lights on until it's 8 or 10 or whatever it is. And that moment, the lights switch. And just imagine the energy building, and then lights off.
He treated the MSG like it was a club because it wasn't even like the normal end stage. This was like mixing the room, and then he did it with Skrillex.
Oh, okay. Because I think we spoke to his manager when we were in Vegas. Let's go. Anyway, what a creative idea.
Yeah.
Bro, he did one where he was at, I think it was at the Hollywood Bowl, and he got all the people that came to his very first show when he went to LA, and it was like 200, 300 people, and put them in the Hollywood Bowl in one section, and did a private show for those like 300 people.
That's fire.
The day before the actual arena.
That's fire. The LA Coliseum show, he created like this LED moat around the entire bowl of a stadium so that everyone had
get that
seat. And then did the B stage show.
He's thinking outside the box. Man, I wonder who's doing all that production for him.
Yeah.
Hey,
I mean,
back at you. Like your show.
The guys, and I want to hear your guys, reflection on your show. But what everybody came to me and they're like, "Oh, this was amazing," and there was this, there was so much creativity added to it, but like the explosiveness was awesome. And I was talking to a guy about EDM or whatever. I don't know anything about EDM, okay? But I was talking about some EDM, and he said something interesting, because I asked him to play that Anima guy, or Anima, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. And it was like an hour-long set, and it started like real hard, kind of like pumping stuff, and I was like, I don't know if it's mine. He goes, yeah, but it's an hour-long set. And I go, so? And he goes, well, like the first 20, 30 minutes, he's just getting everybody's heart rate up to, from 80 beats to like 110. And I go, why? He goes, so that they can do this big drop. He goes, it'd be different if he was just doing like 5 songs. As a comedian, you think about these things, but you're not as tied into like somebody's biochemistry as like you are with music. So when you're setting up your set, if you have that hour and a half or 2 hours, how long is your set?
95 minutes.
So 95 minutes. Are you considering that? Are you like, okay, we're slowly bringing them in, everybody's same page, build. Can you,
a little different.
But can you break down like what you're thinking when you're creating a set?
Yeah, of course, every show is different, every tour, just kind of like you with the life. But for me, this particular tour, I was like, I wanted to make a real statement at the beginning of the show. Like, it was important to me not to like, because like the trick is either you come out to like an up-tempo hit that people know, and then you kind of play into the crowd, and then you kind of bring them into the couple songs they don't know, and the set slowly ramps up, and the last 4 songs, the biggest 4 songs. Yeah. This is like rock and roll 101. And I was like, so I've always tried to stay away from that model. Like, not to like give away too much of what I do, but like immediately I'm like, fuck, that model sucks. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, fucking, even from my perspective.
It's expected. Like, and also, 100% gone.
So I was like, what if we come out and the first thing we do, I blow one of the biggest gags I have. I mean, I walk straight into the arena and all eyes on this thing that happens, right? And I drop, I'm not okay, out the gate. You know what I mean? So it's the fucking first thing I'm doing. I mean, I'm walking right in and like fucking balls on table. You know what I'm saying? And I'm doing an effect, right? I'm doing an extra thing that happens. It's like, even if I look right now and tell you, what song I'm going to do first.
Agreed.
And it's still going to have a moment in the song where you're going to go, get the fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? And I also did that because I wanted people to go, where can you go from here? That was intentional too, because I knew once I put us in a box where whenever me and my team were talking, they're like, all right, this is how I did. And I was like, this is what I want to do with this. They're like, cool. I was like, that's how I want to start the show. And right then you can see them go, fuck, well, how are we going to finish that? You know what I'm saying? I was like, that's how we challenge ourselves. Now we got to work through it. We know where we're starting. And then I build the whole set like an emotional. To me, it's about music. The best concerts that meant the most to me were the ones I remember leaving how they made me feel. Like, I don't even remember the set list. I don't fully remember what songs they sung. I remember some highlights. But I remember like the overarching theme of like how I left feeling.
Amen.
And I want people to leave this like feeling like free. Like, you know that feeling, I don't know if I've talked to a bunch of people from up here, don't take this wrong, but like, I always bring it up, but like, that old church feeling. Like, there's something about leaving church on Sunday. There's this misconception that you leave feeling like you're going to hell. But like, if done right, you feel like that at some point in the day, right? But you leave feeling like, I'm fucking a good guy. I showed up. I'm going to eat lunch with my mom now. Like, I'm on fire. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's how I want people to leave that show feeling. And I try to cater the entire set to go into that moment. Because if I know that's my end game, then I just got to figure out how to get there. I know how I'm starting. I know how I want people to feel walking out the door. How do I push them out the door?
Oh, that's awesome.
I can attest. Christ is king.
Finally! Get the funny camera on him. Say it again.
It was spectacular. No.
Oh, that's so cool.
All right, guys. Stylebender's back.
Yep.
Big fight.
Yep.
This is his first non-title fight since a year after he entered the UFC.
Wow.
How long is that?
I forget. I saw the statistics somewhere, but this is the first non-title fight because I think he won the UFC title, I guess, within like a year and change, and then hasn't had a non-title fight because it's either been he won or a rematch. Wow. Insanity, right?
2019 or 2018.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Imagine fighting the second best guy every single fight for years.
That's crazy.
It's a long time to be the best.
Yeah. People forget. That's the thing. Like, I'm a prisoner of the moment or whatever, recency bias or whatever that shit is. But like, you forget what that's like. Imagine every fight you have is the Super Bowl. That's what happens when you're the belt holder.
Yeah.
It's the best two.
Yeah. Your name on the arena every time.
Exactly.
Like everyone tuning in to see you.
Not some like 12th game of the season where you're playing some bum ass squad where you don't have to go home every single time. The titles and the guy who you're fighting has been thinking about that moment his entire adult life.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's nuts. Yeah.
I'm actually excited to see him fight a non-title fight. I'm curious to see, like, is he loose? Is he fucking around?
Yeah,
like,
gotta be.
Yeah, you know, you don't have to carry the weight of the promote. I mean, I'm sure he's still headlining the card, but it's not like you're not carrying this weight like you do. And I just wonder what that's like.
Like what he said when he was here, he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna try some new stuff now." Yeah, like I'm looking forward to that.
Like, is he gonna try to tap him out? Like, what are we gonna see? That's
What do you know about Imavov, I guess is the guy.
I saw Imavov fight some other dude, and I'm forgetting who it was, but I mean, the guy's nice if he's going to be fighting Izzy, you know. So, but yeah, I'm just excited to see it.
This is gonna be like when you get back in the clubs after the tour.
Yeah.
You're done doing arenas, and you're like, you still want to do good.
Yeah.
You're like, we can fuck around a little. We can have some fun.
Enjoy ourselves a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, that's that'll be really cool. And then also you got the Makhachev fight. Makhachev.
You see.
Islam. So Islam is fighting Sarukian, and I don't know that much about. I think it's Armin Sarukian, but I know it's their second fight, and apparently everybody's saying how amazing Sarukian has been. And let's see what happens. But that's going to be January 18th. So
Does Sarukian have a mustache?
No, but he's Christian. He's from Georgia.
You lost.
Or he's Armenian, but still Christian. Yeah.
He lost.
It was funny. Ariel Helwani was interviewing him, and he kept saying things that were in Arabic. He's like, Assalamu alaikum, and all these other things. And he's like, okay, I don't know. I just completely lost about why he was saying these things. So, but yeah, let's see what's going on. You know, we're like detached, I feel like, from the rivalries in the Middle East. So we don't realize the stakes. You know, when like a Georgian fighter fights a Russian fighter.
Yeah.
You know, or like an Armenian fighter fights a Turkish fighter. Like it doesn't mean as much to us because we're not ingrained in it.
Yeah.
You know, but I imagine that's their version of like what's a big boxing rivalry, like Puerto Rico versus Mexico.
Floyd versus a white guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited for these. Obviously, get it popping over at Stake. You know, the leader in global betting and U.S. social casinos. Bet on top sports, political events. Use the promo code Flagrant for your welcome bonus. And let's get back to the show.
Shelly, you've been blowing up. I want to hear about all these stories. I know some of the experiences you must have been having are crazy.
I will tell you a story about Saturday Night Live that I don't know. I'm sure everybody else knew this but me. But I didn't realize that the draft it's live. It's not like live. It's live. It's live. But I didn't realize that the dress rehearsal was for an audience.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why I would have missed that. I guess just when you watch it, I'm not enough behind the curtains to know that side of the business about how the sausage.
So they can use that if they need.
Yeah, I didn't know that was an option either. Because they ended up running the skit that we did in rehearsal that didn't make the actual cuts. They still ran it on YouTube.
Yeah.
They just didn't run it on TV because I was in the skit. They just put it on YouTube. But I didn't know that. So I was like, oh, this is like crazy. And that scared me because I nailed dress rehearsal. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know how like and you walk off and you're like, and I'm walking off and I nailed it so much that like they're clapping for me in the hallways. And I'm like, don't jinx me right now.
Yeah.
I'm like almost feeling weird about it. Like, don't praise me, y'all. This is fucking, that didn't count. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't get to replace this one with that one. It's not enough time. That's not how live TV works. I don't get to come off and go, I like the first one better. That is a choice on some live TV shows, but you know what I'm saying? But it's like, this isn't one of those. This is like, all right, well, that was practice. The next one's for real. Yeah. For 7 million people tuned into the 50th season fucking opener. You're like, I'm going to go out here and blow it. And then I spent 2 hours just thinking about how I was going to fuck it up. You know what I mean? I was like, there's no way I'm going to go out here and get this right, that right.
You're just in the green room.
Yeah, I'm just in the green ruminating in it, by the way. Just circling. Just I had to go out and sit with my wife in the audience.
So what are you thinking when you're on stage, it's dark, and then you hear, ladies and gentlemen, Jelly Roll? What's going through your mind in that moment?
I was like, why wasn't I this nervous the first time? You know what I'm saying? It was the same introduction, same people. Now I know it's live, so I'm sitting there thinking I should have pissed. That's the first thing you're thinking. You're like, I should have peed. And you're like, I can hold this for 3 or 4. You ever do? Y'all have pre-show pisses?
Oh yeah.
Is that like one of those where like literally the host is going up to introduce you, and you're like, man, I gotta piss.
I already feel like, and if I'm nervous, 1 sip of water, I gotta go to the bathroom. It's not even, it's like crazy.
I'm not embarrassed. I'm not ashamed to admit I had to piss in my first bucket on this tour.
Oh really?
That's what's up, yo.
Like on the side of the stage?
Yep.
What did the rest of the arena do?
I have moments in the set built where I can kind of get away and figure things out if I have to.
Got it.
I've built 3 moments into the set for like just for me to breathe, if nothing else, but like if there's something going wrong with the ear pack. You know, it's a big show. I gotta figure shit out sometimes. Yeah. So it's just one of them fucking figure it out moments. And I told right before I walked out, I looked at my guy Yanni, who's my guy in that particular situation. I go, Bubba, I didn't pee. He goes, oh, he knows I pee before every show. He said, oh no. I say, I got an IV, Bubba. I'm gonna have to pee. He's like, I have a bucket for you under the thing. So I went under the stage and you know what I'm saying? It's fucking 16,000 people cheering. Some guy's doing an electric guitar solo, and you're like, this feels weird. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, but you gotta pee so bad, you don't have a choice.
You did that one time.
You did that one. Wait.
Multiple times?
Multiple times. What's your version? I'll tell you.
When I did Kill Tony at MSG, like, I was my flight got delayed coming back from somewhere.
Shreveport. 50.
Oh, Shreveport. I did the 50 cent thing.
You were gonna make it.
Yeah. And so I come in from the 50 cent thing. I'm like texting Tony, like, dude, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I'm trying my best, whatever. I get in. I get there. I'm like, boom, we're on. And they're like, okay, you're gonna go on next. So somebody's gonna go up right now. I'm like, okay. I go to the Ron White's dressing room to take a shit, and as I'm like wiping, I hear them go, give it up from New York City. So I'm like mid-wipe, shit caked all over my ass, pull up my pants. Pull up my pants, go up there, sit down, didn't wash my hands at all, dapped up everybody with the duty
Went up there with the duty fingers.
Yeah.
No, I seen you look frantic when you got up there.
Oh yeah,
because it was the last 12 minutes of the We were sitting in front of the house smoking a joint. I was like, he made it.
Yeah. What about yesterday when they didn't have a bathroom in the whole?
Oh yeah.
The whole
Where you went?
What was that one?
A little paper waste bin.
Oh yeah, I peed behind the stage, right?
It was like they had the like fake green room that they built inside the arena thing, but there was no bathrooms.
Yeah.
So you just had to rip in the trash can.
I mean,
And then after the show, you went up to some poor room and you're like, by the way, that trash can's got to go.
I mean, there was one time where like I was wearing these pants, like usually I have like a jean or something like that, or like a darker, but there was like a pant I was wearing. I don't know why it was like light, and I peed and I was like in a rush, so I didn't let it.
You got to shake.
I'm a shake. I have to shake. Yeah. Like at my age, I would say between 40% of my pee out when I pee and 60% when I pee. Okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't have time to shake, and I remember running to stage and just feeling myself pee on myself.
Like a full pee.
Full pee, like going down the leg as they're playing like the intro video for me. And I remember just like taking the pants and like rubbing it into one another, like that, trying to dry it, like pulling whatever shirt that I had down over it.
You were wearing denim or something light too.
It was light.
Man.
It was light. Oh yeah.
Oh, you and Alex, boy, y'all brave with them light colored spanks. I got too much of a dribble too, man.
I'm straight dribble, dude. It's bad.
The difference between me and you is at least you can, when you shake it just to shake. I got to do a little bit of hopscotch. You know what I'm saying? Well, the game with Twister. I got to do a little Twister. I got to put one hand here, one hand here. You know what I'm saying? Give a little hip thrust.
You know what's interesting is like I'll be very deliberate about peeing in the toilet when I'm peeing. When I shake, it's a helicopter. Like it's almost as if like shake, dribble, wherever that goes doesn't count. Like it's on the sink, it's everywhere, it's on the mirror in the bathroom, it's everywhere. But I don't feel any need to clean that up for whatever reason. I don't know. It's the same pee. It's like like when you're in a pool and you pee, it's okay.
You can pick that up.
No. I'm interested.
I'm gonna gross you out even more. But like when you're in a pool and you pee, that's like okay. If you're outside of a pool, you pee into a pool, that's not okay.
Peeing in the pool versus peeing into the pool.
But
no.
What do you mean?
Peeing into a pool is a little.
You get out of a pool to pee.
I mean, I don't really swim like that, to be honest. To be honest. You know what I mean?
But like you would leave the pool to pee.
Yeah.
You would go do that.
Yeah.
You don't know what pool.
You lie.
You're not.
I would. I don't swim that much, so it's easy to stand on this.
But like as often as you pee, you're not.
I pull every 5 seconds. Like,
I don't swim very long, guys.
Now they got the stuff you put in the pool, and it changes colors when you start urinating.
Is that real or is that just something? I'm hearing that since the 90s.
No, that's what you tell kids. They don't pee in the pool.
Yeah,
well, maybe it's a fake video.
But
What's up with
the chlorine then? Like, what does the chlorine do? I thought that's to clean out the pee.
That's why it smells like chlorine. Funny.
I try not to piss in other people's pools.
Say again?
I try not to piss in other people's pools. That's a policy I try to hold to.
Yeah. I cannot.
You know what I'm saying? My pool, if I got
You were in his pool in Miami. I hope you peed in it.
I don't think I peed in that pool. He peed in that pool, obviously.
I did. Yeah. 100%. I did. I didn't even know that you weren't supposed to. Like you saying I don't pee in other people's pools, like my brain just exploded. I was like, oh, you're not supposed to do that. Like, do you see it as like taking your shoes off before you enter like an Asian thing?
No, just like a...
Or in a home?
You don't take your shoes off?
No, I walk around the home.
I thought chlorine was to keep the water from getting stale. Like pond water, you know what I'm saying? Like
I thought it was to clean the pee out of the pool.
No, I think it's more for like, if water just sits stale like that and it don't get nothing, no chemical in it, the water will start, watering. You know what I'm saying? It'll start growing out of it.
I know what that means.
I get it.
You get mosquitoes.
Listen, I've grown up around enough ponds to tell you.
Water will start watering.
You might be right. I was just telling you, man. I've been around a pond or two. You know what I'm saying? The only thing that keeps a pool from being a pond is chlorine.
You know what the bummer about having a dribble is? Is it like I would never pee on my wife, but like let's say that we got to a point in our relationship where we were like, let's try to spice it up. We're 60 years old or whatever.
What are you doing in the shower first?
No, but like if I peed on her, right? And I wouldn't do this, but if I peed on her, I would finish, and then I have to be like, well, hold on, most of it's about to come out now. Like, you can't just get up now. Like, we gotta be here for the little dribble. Like, I gotta spackle it up. You know, like
here comes the helicopter.
I'm another ounce and a half out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like, it would really just destroy the mood. Like, as hot as it is, just getting drenched in urine. Then me being like, well, here comes the rest of it.
How old are you?
Huh?
I'm fit to be 40.
I'm 40. My dick is 90.
I don't got the drip. My problem is my piss is in spurts. I know when I think I'm done, I got another one coming. I just got to be patient.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I just got to stand there for another second and be like, there's a whole other one of these on the way. I just got to sit here and relax.
I know that. I know well.
Like when you hold the hose closed.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I know it's on the way.
You shit on the bus? You shit on the tour bus?
No, I got to shit in a bag instead.
What?
Have you ever had to shit during the show?
What? Can I be honest with you? There was
trying to one each other up.
This is great. There was one show where I went on stage knowing full well I had to shit, and I remember I got off that stage and I beelined it to the bathroom and I filled that fucking thing up. I created like a volcanic island, like the dude who filled the hole and then grew and then breached the surface of the water.
Those always feel. Those are great. Those are satisfying. I feel stuff. Yeah, you killed it.
It's one of those where you look at your stomach in the mirror afterwards. Check your abs. Like it was one of those.
That was on Infamous.
Why have you shit on stage?
No, well, I have. First of all, my wife's gonna hate this podcast. I have no shit shame, and she shames me for it all the time.
Good.
I have zero shit shame.
We need that as men. That's important.
I don't have it, but we were playing Pittsburgh at a bar that was connected to a bowling alley.
Nice.
So there was like this was a bar. This is 8 years ago, 7 years ago, maybe 6 years ago even. And it's like a 500 capper, right? There's our green room is through the crowd. It's one of those things. And our green room didn't have a bathroom.
Oh.
I hate that.
So you would have to go into the bowling.
What the fuck, dude?
But the way the backstage was set up behind the stage was like an outdoor fenced-in area that you could sit at a picnic table. You see where this story's going?
Yeah.
I'm on stage.
I like this.
Listen, man, I can't believe I'm telling this on this podcast. And I feel it rumbling. I'm like, it's finna happen. I hit the drummer, and I'm like, yo, I just need y'all to vamp. Just like, whatever.
Everybody gets a solo.
We don't even got ears, so you don't have a microphone to talk back. Like, now we can go talk. Yeah. We have full conversations on that stage because we can hit one microphone that just us can hear.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, it's crazy fire. So it's like, that wasn't an option. So I'm having to, like, go to my guy, like, play. I'm fixing the shit. And I walked straight out the back door where that little back patio was, drop my drawers. My wife's standing right there going, what are you doing? We've been married maybe a year. And this is like prime drunk jelly roll, drinking codeine, cocaine. Like my shit was just water almost, soft serve water, and I could not stop. They played for me.
Was it coming down your thighs?
It's worse when fat people talk about it, right?
It is. I'm sorry. I'm imagining was it coming down worse, and I don't know why.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't think you can avoid the thighs.
Yeah. So are you squatting during this? Are you your legs like just straight?
No, I'm doing like a little hover thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing like the best squat I can do for the size I was.
That's the thing.
I'm pressed up against the fence probably. I've had this shit. I'm from the country.
You're like a bear.
You know what I'm saying? I've never. The sitting on the side of the road is not a new concept to me, sadly.
What do you
so I'm experienced in that moment?
Yeah.
Nothing.
God damn, Jelly.
You gotta get up.
Not a liquid shit, no. You savage.
Just
run your ass against a brick.
Listen, the worst part of this podcast
you went to stage with shit all over your ass and head.
What are you talking about?
I did.
I'm not proud of it. He was in his green.
I tried to.
You know what was crazy? I wiped and I broke I broke through
Oh, that's petty. No, you can't. No, that's
He's lying, but it's disgusting.
Yeah.
It still feels real.
I did that. I did. Why did I lie about that? So I look cool? It makes me look cool.
It's
I
working.
figured my own ass.
It's a true story. I know one time. I'm not going to keep telling shit.
I didn't even know. So you went liquid shit air drying?
This is the wildest podcast.
That's where you gotta shake. That's where you gotta shake.
You gotta shake after that liquid shit air.
No, you gotta do one of those for sure. And no, you know what else you gotta do? You gotta squeeze the butt cheeks together and then squat and then squeeze. You know what I'm saying? Just trying to get
it all out. Get it all out. Toothpaste. Yeah.
I've had to do. I've been in the country. I've had to wipe with leaves before.
You had to wipe with leaves.
That's kind of nice, actually. I've done that.
No, that's not that stuff.
Mark
That'll tear that asshole to pieces, man. The smoothest sleeve out there is gonna butcher that butthole.
I like that. You guys are country. Wiping with a smooth leaf because it can't be too smooth or it's not gonna grab. I need some grip.
Yeah, you need friction.
I need grip.
Listen,
I need grip. I need it to be like a skateboard.
the first time I went to my uncle's farm, my cousin shit and wiped with poison ivy.
Oh, no.
Poison oak. It was poison oak. It just looks like a regular oak leaf.
Yeah.
It was poison oak.
And then what happened?
Oh, he flamed his ass up. What are you talking about? It's all bad, man.
We had a neighbor that did that.
So bad. Have you ever had poison ivy?
Poison ivy I've had. Not
Imagine
poison
that
oak.
on all the way from bottom of nutsack to tip of tailbone.
Oh no.
Yeah, horrible shit.
We had a neighbor that did that. He's actually from Tennessee.
Really?
He's from Knoxville, and he got poison ivy on his hands. And I swear to God, his wife came out of the room like 2 hours later. She was like, "Oh, my breasts are burning." I swear to God, I'm not lying. She's like, "My breasts, I just don't know what it is."
No, if you touch poison ivy or poison oak, you can't piss.
Oh, really?
You can't. Yeah, touch your dick after that. Watch, bub. That stuff it's like chicken pox. It goes with everything it touches.
We gotta do an episode of Hot Ones, bro. We need Hot Ones with that. Touch your dick after poison ivy.
It is.
Can you transfer it to other people?
Yeah,
Immediately.
Yeah.
That's how his wife got it.
There's literally, if I touch a poison ivy right now and I grab
my dick,
I'm not touching your back of my butt.
If you touch my dick, that shit will get swollen.
Maybe that's I don't know, but maybe that's what the foreskin or whatever was designed to do initially.
It's a sheath.
It is like a protective layer.
Yeah. Yeah, you need that.
Do you think the foreskin is immune to types of ivy or poison?
I think it is immune to a lot of poison.
I think you could drag that fucking hangy dick bush of poison oak.
But sometimes it does collect little things though.
Like what?
Like little stickers and stuff. It collects little stickers.
No way.
If you're out
Are
of
you
the
like a
woods,
clam? Like if we open you up, is there going to be like a little marble in there?
yeah, there's jewels.
Oh my god.
Yeah. If you let it go too long.
Can we do that on a Patreon?
Yeah, we might need to.
That'd be kind of sick.
Yeah. That's why you just gotta go commando, bro. You have a bidet?
I live by bidet.
It's nice, right?
Ernest and them sent me a bunch of bidets during COVID.
We don't need one.
Somebody found listen. So my wife
Every multiple bathrooms.
my wife bought me the bidet commode because I like the attachment so much.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh, with the wireless situation.
Yeah, no. Yeah. This was like she bought the one from wherever they make them at.
They got a full ass toilet.
UK or whatever.
They got like a dryer.
And it was a big one. I thought it's crazy. Dude,
The whole toilet is one.
Yes, the whole toilet one. I can control the temperature.
That's
of
the underrated
water.
thing. Heated toilet seat.
That's that's sick.
Instant relax that we've been talking about.
Why are they so good at the toilet thing? Why did the Japanese?
Why are we not? We eat the most shit. The most gotta be.
Yeah.
Why are we
I feel
not
like
more
they're
focused
the
on
least.
ass hygiene?
I had a bidet for years now.
Bidet, no.
Did America invent the porta potty?
Did we?
I feel like that's something we would have.
Oh, must have. Yeah, George Harding made the first porta potty in 1960.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's creepy. Damn, it makes me wonder how they were shitting in festivals before that.
Or like Woodstock?
Woodstock was in the 60s, though.
Yeah, but they just, that's a good point.
But yeah, they had that was a problem
you
with
look like a
Woodstock. By the way. They
fucking
didn't have enough.
Well, I don't know if they had porta potties.
No, but they didn't have enough. The problem was, do you know the story about Woodstock, right? Y'all know this?
No.
I'm going to butcher it, and y'all correct me, but at least in the spirit of me trying to get it right, is they anticipated, based on like ticket sales, this to be a flop. They staffed it for like 4,000 people.
Wow.
So what happened was, because it was so loose, they didn't even put fences up or try to gate it or nothing. They were just like, look, it's just kind of, at this point, it's integrity. We sold 4,000 tickets. Anybody who wants to show up can come. But back then, it wasn't like you could post that on fucking TikTok. You know what I mean? So they thought, maybe our neighbors will come. Maybe, the community will come together. They were expecting like 7,000 people at most. When 500,000 motherfuckers, and the word started getting out, fucking Jimi Hendrix, all this crazy shit's happening, and it's free. They don't have a fence. It's like, it's a third, right? So it immediately just like the whole, this part of America. Right into it is what. So there was shit everywhere. That was a big part of it. You watch the documentary, it's super bad. The other problem was they didn't know how to feed people. And there were so many people backed up on the interstate highways That's why there was only one Woodstock. It was a logistical nightmare. The other side of the beauty of what we see is they could not. They thought people were going to die. It was really bad. The locals came in and started cooking like big bowls of chicken and rice just to mass feed people.
Wow.
They wasn't ready to feed that many. They wasn't ready for that area of New York. Wasn't ready for 500,000 motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Still probably
Still not ready at all.
Yeah.
You feel bad for the Firefest guy. He's like, I went to prison for this.
Yeah.
The Woodstock guy's got like the greatest documentary ever. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it was great.
He's running it back though. Firefest is running it back.
Is he gonna do it again?
Yeah, would you perform at Firefest too?
I think I'd probably pass.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably pass. I don't know, man. I'm all about second chances and redemption too, though.
Yeah.
I would hear him out.
Yeah.
I would give him an audience. You know what I mean? Like, yo, what did you really learn?
Make sure he comes thirsty.
Did you not come out like the problem is with prison is people either come out and really want to change their life or they come out smarter criminals.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. And and I'm all about second chances. So yeah, I'll hear him out. But my gut reaction is fucking no. Not into that at all. You know what I mean? But I'm also just not into being on a plane that long. Or just doesn't sound like my crowd. I don't look like based on what he tried to book.
Guys, let's take a break for a second, okay? When I wake up in the morning, I make sure to exercise the most important muscle in my body, my freedom of speech. Let's go, dude. Because I'm an American, and as an American, the most important thing that I do in my life outside of exercising my freedom of speech is to put caffeine in my system. Coffee, specifically.
Not tea.
Not tea.
Throw that in the river.
Yeah, we do. We boycott that, and we use the most badass coffee on the planet. Black Rifle coffee.
Yeah.
Not another color rifle.
Yeah.
Black Rifle.
Yeah.
In the night, pulling up, shooting drones out of the sky. Boom.
Yeah.
You're lucky there's not a bald eagle on my shoulder. Someone put one in post.
Will do.
Thank you. When you need to get your day started in the most American patriotic way possible, what do? Do you kick a migrant over the wall?
Yeah.
Maybe. Do you call an Uber and check to make sure that they have papers and legal status in the United States of America?
Yeah.
Maybe. Do you go to Home Depot, round them all up, take them to a deportation center? Maybe.
Yeah.
But how are you going to do that if you don't have the energy that you need? And what's going to give you that energy? What's going to give you that focus? What's going to give you that super ability to look at someone and make sure that they're from the greatest country in the world?
Not Starbucks.
No, not Starbucks. It's Black Rifle coffee. Thank you. Okay, the greatest coffee on the fucking planet. So right now, you go to blackriflecoffee.com, and I'm gonna send you a gun.
Wait, that's not. That's actually not.
If you go to blackriflecoffee.com/flagrant and use the code flagrant, we are going to send
a gift basket of guns.
Gift basket.
That's not.
Of gun. It's not
we
guns.
have to edit that out, 'cause that's not
okay,
true.
there might be some hand grenades.
That's also
what
not
has
true.
often happened is a hand grenade or two has slipped into the gift basket of the coffee, right? Because you can find Black Rifle coffee, obviously, in energy drinks and the grocery store, the convenience stores near you. Yes, you can, but you can also go online and get it, and maybe a grenade ends up in your basket.
That's not.
I would do it if I'm you. It's hard to get a grenade.
Take your chances.
You got to take your chances.
And you'll get 30% off.
You get 30% off. You might get a bald eagle chicken wing in there. The point is, the greatest coffee on the planet.
Yeah.
The coffee that's going to make sure you exercise your freedom of speech. All these things are possible as long as you are caffeinated with Black Rifle coffee.
Yeah.
All right? You order Black Rifle coffee right now. You get to pick which country we invade. A lot of people don't realize that is part of the gift basket. You get a map, you point at it. That's it. Greenland? You want Greenland? You want Syria? It's all up for grabs.
We already working on Canada.
You better watch out, Canada. Do we even ship this to Canada?
They don't deserve it.
If we ship this to Canada,
Not
they
until
might
we
have the
annex.
chutzpah to try to invade us again.
Oh, shit.
But you know what's going to happen if you run it back? BlackRifleCoffee.com. Use the code Flagrant, 30% off today, and see what all the hype is about. All right, guys, let's take a break for a sec, okay? Let's just be honest. A lot of people out there spend 10 to learn how homeowners are saving $800 a month on average. Now let's get back to the show. You're headlining. This is
Stagecoach.
Yeah, this is the
huge,
big one. Yeah.
Huge. Yeah, it's our Coachella. I know y'all work ridiculous and asking y'all to do something other than
I want to go to
Saturday.
that.
Stagecoach would be awesome.
So it's you. Who else?
It's going to be Luke Combs or Zach Bryan's. Luke Combs is Friday night.
Yeah.
I headline Saturday night, and Zach Bryan headlines Sunday night.
Wow.
Zach Bryan.
It's going to be 75,000. It's going to be. I mean, it's going to be
Indeed.
insane.
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's April. It's the
Coachella is the first week.
first 2 weeks, and then the week after it is.
Yeah. And then hold on, there's a fun little thing.
T-Pain, Creed, and Backstreet Boys.
Oh,
I'll be there.
fire.
And listen,
T-Pain
don't
is fire,
accidentally
dude.
look over Nelly doing 25 years
Oh,
of Country
Nelly,
Grammar,
dog.
Lana Del
hell
Rey,
yeah.
Sammy Hagar.
Sturgill.
Sammy Hagar's the man.
Oh, Sturgill's going to be awesome.
Sturgill's my night.
Son, we were just talking about Nelly last weekend and how, like, man, that first album, unfucking
This is Down Me Celebrating.
Yeah,
Country Grammar.
Country Grammar,
He's
EI,
doing all Country Grammar
Ride
stuff.
With Me, those were just like, those took over. the country.
Shabuzi's my night, Cole Wetzel. Actually,
that's gonna be
this
fun.
night is special.
I'm
It's gonna
pulling
be-
up.
I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, dead ass. We're trying to pull up.
Flatland Cavalry. This is
This is
awesome.
big.
What is this? What?
25th, 26th, 27th?
Of what?
April.
I'm in there.
I'm coming.
Cool.
Bring the
Well,
wife.
it's gonna be big.
How
So,
crazy is it to have the baby out there?
It's great. Come on. We'll put the headphones on. People bring babies all the time. It's great. The weather was great when we were out there.
Also, the baby can stay. You're not like it's not like a Woodstock type thing where you're like there the whole day. You can go back to the house and then come back for
It's so
different.
easy to come back. And also, especially on my night, I have the whole compound, so it's whatever. I'll give you your own. You'll have your own room. Don't worry about that. We'll take care of you.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be fun.
We'll roll out the red carpet. It'll be fun. Trust me,
cool.
This is a big deal for us. If you know one thing y'all know about me is I'm like y'all. This is how we became friends. Is that we treat every moment that is a moment like it's a moment. So y'all know what the fuck I'm fixing to do. It should say Jelly Rolling Friends because I am fucking. I got big tricks up my sleeve. I got big tricks up my sleeve. I'll talk about.
Wow.
I've already got one commitment. About this one commitment's the only one that comes through. It's going to be the most legendary thing that ever happened to Stagecoach.
Really?
And I got 2 more calls out for even crazier looks.
Wow.
And like seeing that like Saturday of Stagecoach, that's when everyone is there. It's like that's a Jay-Z Beyonce main stage equivalent with what
I was just gonna say you should bring up.
Yeah, that's the weekend at Coachella. Yeah, it's that same audience, not the weekend. It's obviously the biggest artist ever.
Andrew just thinking what drugs he's gonna be doing that night.
No, I haven't been into the drugs. Though I'm the
fatherhood. That's the drug.
fatherhood. I haven't smoked a cigarette or anything since the baby, and I haven't touched drugs since the baby.
Wow.
And not really even had any interest in doing it. It's kind of weird. But I will say this: Burning Man is calling me a little bit. I was talking to my the guy who does like PT and training stuff. Shout out. And he's fucking unbelievable. You guys should definitely get in touch with him if you can. He's incredible, truly incredible. Like saved my shoulder. My shoulder. I was getting cortisone. What are they called? Cortisone. Cortisone or cortisol? Cortisone.
It's a cortisone. Yeah.
Cortisone shots. A doctor was literally like, "Yeah, this is just what your shoulder's going to be like." A doctor. And then him and another one. They basically just like saved my shoulder. Like truly remarkable. Makes me truly believe in PT. Anyway. Oh fuck, I can't. Now we got to bleep his name because I want to tell you the other thing. But he's like a chemist with everything in his life in terms of what he puts in his body, outside like with food, etc. And then just today he was breaking down his like how he does the night, how he ramps up the night, and he's like he tests his own drugs.
Wow.
He creates his own pills out of it.
Wow.
Like he's
dosing himself. He's down to the microscience.
Like he's got it down to a science what he needs to have his perfect
cortisone, right?
Cortisone. So the second he told me that shit, I was like, I think I need to get high again. I didn't know you could do it like a science. You know, that seems safe.
Listen, man.
It's learning really when you get down to it.
Yeah.
I've been a parent a little bit for a while now, and I can tell you one of the most pieces of parent advice I can give my 2 young fathers here, especially for you and your wife, which I've met both of your wives, and I think they're both sweet people. It's important for y'all to find time to not be parents. And I know you're early in the process, so that sounds unreal.
No, you're right.
This moment. But it is important that y'all go to Burning Man and completely fucking lose your mind and put your kids home. That is the only thing that will make that balancing act work. Because a little night out with some wine or a weekend away at a hotel, a staycation, or that's not enough. You need every now and then to go out and be like, we're fucking college kids again. We're fucking gonna get naked and swing from chandeliers. We're gonna get kicked out of the fucking hotel. Like, it's important every now and then. All parents out there listening, trust the fat man with this one, y'all. I swear. It is a backbone of something me and Bunny have stood by. It's like, it is important to every now and then, because even you're about to do stuff, we're parents 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Every now and then, I just don't need to be.
You know, it's funny. It's like you spend so much more time with your wife, your partner, whatever, once you have a kid. But it is fundamentally nothing like the time that you've spent in the past. So before, any time you get together, right, as a dude, you're obviously calculating it. You're like, okay, we got tons of time this week. This is awesome. We didn't get time next week. But when you're with a baby, you think you're getting that same experience, but you're not filling each other up in the same way. You're getting filled up by that baby. That baby is euphoria, right? But there is another component, which is filling each other up. And whether, I don't know if it's, you got to go crazy every single time, but literally just making sure you go out to dinner. Like, that's something that my wife and I get a half hour go and get coffee. Like having 30 minutes where we can talk to one another. Maybe there's some shit we got to work out. Maybe there's a disagreement we got, and there's just, well, we don't want to argue in front of the baby. Exactly, like
that's real.
Creating those times, and at first you almost feel selfish. You're like, why am I trying to create time with me and my wife when we have a baby? Like, we should be spending every single second with the baby. But you realize that maybe that's the most important thing for that baby. Like, if things are great between us, everything's good. And if they're not good between us, they are in a really difficult situation. It's something nobody will prepare you for. Nobody talks about it. Like, nobody tells you right before you have a kid, by the way, your relationship is going to completely change the dynamic, the how you guys spend time, and you need to be ready for that change and do everything that you need to make sure that you're both getting what you need from each other within that change.
It's a whole extra prioritization too, because you're like, initially it's like I'm just, I'm already juggling work and these other ideas I have and ambitions and dreams and hobbies with my wife. Now I'm juggling, and then it's easy to lump them together. Oh, it's my wife and kid. And I had to learn fast, like, it's not.
It ain't that.
That is one thing, but me and my wife are a separate thing, and this is where it gets deeper when they get older. And me and my kid are a separate thing, too. Because then you'll fall guilty sometimes. Be like, oh, I've got it great. I got the wife and kid, and then I got the wife. It's like, well, no, you still got to go sit down and be just a dad,
She needs just you.
Yeah, like, you still got to go put in that
just her time,
You need that just her time. It's important for growth. And me, like, sneaking away, getting them dinners, going on those things, they're important, equally important. Once a year, go blow it out. Be fucking irresponsible. It's important. I stand by it, dude. It's been such an important thing for me.
There's that thing on Instagram that, like, every male friend group has been forwarding to one another, and none of us have been forwarding to our wives, but it was like, study says that men need 2 nights a week with the boys. Have you guys seen that pop up on your Instagram?
No, fuck's my algorithm doing?
The girls in control of it.
Yeah.
But like, it is, I don't know what the exact number is. Like, obviously, we're very lucky we get to come here and like shoot the shit and just have a lot of fun. But that is an important thing to communicate as well. Like, that's a really hard thing to say to the person you love more than anything in the world is, hey, I need to not be with you tonight.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think my wife was like, I just love spending time with you. And I was like, I also love spending time with me. So I need to do that right now. I need about an hour with me. What you're feeling is what I'm feeling. I need that right now.
Bunny quit drinking many years ago, and everything I gave up, I'll still go out and tie one on every now and then. And I've cut it back immensely, but that's what Bunny does understand is that when I do have that
Let it go.
wager in me, Bunny is, I love her for this because my wife stands, she'll call it early. She'll be like,
I'll not argue.
you might just need to find a night to go out. Like, she'll start kind of pushing me like, when have you done something? You know, go do something. So like, even like the other night when we're sitting around, it's my first night off in probably 17, 18 days. And she was like, you should go rest. I was like, Schultz is at a comedy club. I get to catch him at the Cellar. And while we're here, I don't want to bookmark it. I want you to let me get through this.
Yeah.
When I seen you at the Life Tour, I can tell you beyond the shadow of a doubt, it's going to be one of the greatest hours of stand-up we're ever going to witness.
Oh, God bless.
It is his best hour after
Thank
that
you, bro.
tour.
No, it's not about being your best hour.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is going to be one of the best hours ever. And I had a moment when you were at the Cellar, because this is why I wanted to come see you, too. I had a moment at the Cellar where I was like, I seen it at Nashville Comedy Fest in April.
Yeah.
The way y'all's business work is different than mine. It's only gotten better.
Oh, thank you.
It couldn't have gotten worse. The way y'all's business is, you've only found, I seen you working out little shit. I'm like, oh, he's still picking this thing fucking apart. And I've seen it fucking, you know what I mean? You can use this part or not if you don't want to. Even down to the name caught me off guard. Like, I had flash shots of when you announced the Life Tour and it's this silhouette of you. I have these flash shots of you in this 1964 Impala doing, you know, at your first big LA theater show, right? I'm looking at like these Schultz moments and I'm like, oh, I bet this is going to be, you know, I remember the plane Schultz and like, I just remember these eras of like, I wonder what this is going to be. So I went in expecting more of that. And was like, get the fuck out of here. I was like, this dude's a fucking, this is brilliant.
That's
You're
why
gonna
when
show
I say-
so many people so much more than motherfuckers know you're that. They know you're him, but they still underestimate you. That's
thank you, man.
That's why I say it's his best hour. Given everything he's done for this to still be his best hour, I don't say that like
they're gonna goat head you on this one, dog.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you.
Fucking special. So anyways, I tell my wife, I'm like, yo, Schultz is at the Cellar.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, fucking go. She immediately was like, because she knows I need that.
Yeah.
She's like, she knows how much I need to, like, she knows how much y'all fill me up and how much I love comedy. And she's like, just go be somewhere where you fucking aren't you.
That's a lot of confidence for her to say that too, like for her not to see that as a sense of projection, like you don't want to be with her. And that takes time also, like that's maturity. You know, it's very easy, I think, to get caught up, men and women, we can get caught up in this feeling of like, oh, if my partner doesn't want to be with me, does that mean they don't like me?
Right.
Am I not as fun as that other thing?
Do they want to be with someone else?
Yeah, exactly.
There's something else cooking. You're right.
Yeah,
and
we both do it. And then instead of saying, hey, I'm hurt, we get upset at them or try to catch them in things because it's way easier to be like, you're wrong than say, I feel insecure. So I like commend her for that. That's a very mature position.
I'm telling you, and I was going to go hang out with her. And she was like, no, go, man. That's just where she's at. She's always encouraged, but she knows my heart too. She knows like, this dude's been fucking, you know, like, because when I get to get in them situations, I don't have to be the dude. I just get to be with the dudes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so she knows how much I need that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
you
so
get to relax a little bit. That's interesting. I didn't think about it like that. Like everybody, when you're on tour and you're doing foul, you're doing all these different things. Everything is around your orbit.
Right.
And then when you go hang out with some other guys that it's not related to your show or anything you're doing in your life.
And we're genuinely just friends.
Yeah, everybody's just hanging. There's no longer this pressure, this expectation, everybody waiting to see if it's time for you to go. Yeah.
And then my connection always with y'all too is that watching that we were all in clubs together and have built this thing in like a parallel path. So it's like now we're just sitting being homies. We're dudes, and now we're giving inside trader secrets, right? Now it's like, oh, what's this? What's that? What's the deal on this? What's the deal on that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you getting with Kels that night was special for me because I had multiple conversations with him where I was like, I have so many people that if they knew you were this charming would feel so differently about you. I was like, could you just humor me and just go show people this? And he was like, and I love him so much because he was so open to it, and it was so innocent because he was like, how? And I was like, Bubba. Man, because, you know, he had come up such a rock star way it had been semi-traditional media.
Yeah.
So he had never like...
There wasn't a lot of opportunity to show personality. Like you're only seeing art and you're only seeing pictures.
For sure.
And then you spoke about that, about even like through podcasting. Like podcasting, you really get a sense of like who somebody is.
You can't come in here and fake it for 2.5
2 hours is a long time.
Boys on flagrant. I tell my people in Nashville that all the time.
Yeah.
You can't go sit on Joe Rogan for 2.5 hours and Joe not get you to tell people who the fuck you are.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
It's gonna come out.
It's just inevitable. You can't shoot where if I go do a 12-minute clip for this particular show.
America or whatever,
it's pretty easy to kind of, you know, okay, we don't really got to really dig up into the weeds here. And a lot of artists avoid this because they know that it can only do us wrong. This is only risky for.
There's gonna be shit stories that come up.
Yeah, there's gonna be shit stories. There's gonna be fucking funny headlines. You know what I mean?
But if you are a magnetic personality, then it's a great platform.
It's a great platform. That's what I'm like, yo, pub, just like, I was like, and go somewhere you like, go somewhere you're interested in because you dig what they do, or somewhere you feel safe.
Yeah.
And then immediately he's like, you're friends with Flagrant.
Yeah.
I was like, those are my boys.
Yeah.
And he was like, I got to get with him. I was like, I'm going to tell you how that works.
Yeah.
You're going to have to meet them because they're dudes.
I need him to tell. I need him to tell that Leo story. I'm not going to say anything else, but he told the story that, man.
Listen, man, that dude's got the best stories. We got to get him on his couch, man. He's fucking
So he had an interesting thing. Like, he's this young kid in Hollywood at the time where it's like him, Bieber, and like a few other people going. And like,
are you going to piss?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We can't let him drink water. We can't let him drink water.
There's a bucket in the corner.
We'll give him a piss, but I got to put it down with it.
He was, and it was just like going, like that time where there were these young people in Hollywood just going crazy. The stories that came out of that were quite entertaining. All right, guys, today's the final day, okay? We find out who won. We know Mark won. Stop clapping, okay? Obviously, Mark cheated.
Is this annoying? Is it annoying that I'm clapping on all your fucking dead bodies, idiots? You guys suck.
It is actually.
Yo, Coffee, look into Mark, yo.
Yep.
Mark,
I wasn't joking. I wasn't joking. No, don't do that. No, don't do that. That was a joke. That was a joke. I was just being silly.
I'm the most trustworthy. I lost everything.
Yeah, trust Akash's picks.
Coffee, you're safe with me, baby.
Destroy your marriage, if you're trying to piss off your family,
I'm your guy.
If you're trying to lose your life savings, you trust Akash Singh with your picks. Now, Mark has some insider trading, some insider information. Coffee, you need to look him up immediately.
No.
Obviously, he's been up to some shenanigans and we don't like
everything's above board. Everything's above board.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, it was.
I don't believe it. The guy blasted out 25% almost immediately.
Nancy Pelosi right here.
Yeah, you are.
What would I do? What does this even mean?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I don't even sound like that.
Put it that way.
I don't even sound like that. That's not what I sound like.
You can't argue with that logic.
That sounds nothing like me.
Kill the rich, bro.
No, if he didn't have a child, if he didn't just have a child, I would say walk up to him on the street and shoot him in the back of the head. What the fuck, he has a child,
what the
and that
hell?
is different.
Don't
and you
say
should not do that.
Guys,
you should not do that.
I was giving him $200. I didn't
If you
that much.
see him eating at a restaurant, masturbating his food.
What the hell? Okay,
don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do any of these things. These are.
I'll tell you what.
Special sauce. Okay. Point is, listen. You know the reality is this is the reality.
What's the reality, dude?
Despite you cheating and somehow being ahead, all of our money is still intact. And why is it still intact?
He's cracking.
Because we was cracking. We have an exchange we can trust. An exchange that is going to be there for the good times and the bad. And that is what is important. Kraken has our back. What I would do is, if I were you, is I would stay as far from your...
So violent.
Because if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you a real answer. Yeah. And he was straight up. He was just like, yeah, so what do you think this is? And I was like, all right, well, these are my thoughts on it. And that's heavy. Yeah. If you're asking me to describe your perception, where your career is at, all these different things, like I tell you honestly, and he was like, he reflected on it, he's like, oh wow, I can see that. Yeah. A lot of people would fight for their perceived identity in that moment and be like, no, I disagree with you about these types of things, but he like analyzing, he's like, oh, okay, I can see why that might be that. And I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. Yeah.
He's so, man, every conversation I've ever had with him, he's so, even down to like this, I joked with you that night, and I mean, I'm like, I'm his publicist right now, that's how I feel. You know what I'm saying? I'm out here showing the world, like, this dude is so much. Even when we got back to circle back to the him and M thing, is like, that's why I see so much of them each other. I just think that he was so young during all of that. You know what I mean? Like, even what he did to initially make him mad into the battle era of like, you know, man, that dude's got a, you know, like we're watching this new video with him and I'm getting choked up, married and announce a child.
Yeah.
But equally, I'm just with MGK at MGK Day in Cleveland, and he's got a 16-year-old that's like already taking college classes. Like,
crazy, right?
Genius kid. He's like, this dude flies every weekend from LA to go be a volleyball dad. You know what I mean? Like every weekend, I'm like, if people knew that about you, besides this picture of you wearing this fucking wild outfit, you know what I'm saying? Like, it would be such a, I know how fast it made my shift to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whenever I'm talking to you and I'm seeing the consistency, I'm like, where you at? He's like, on my way to Cleveland. I'm like, damn, is he volleyball again this weekend? He's like, every weekend, dog, for 28. He quit touring. He took a year off of touring.
Yeah.
Tens of millions of dollars. Like, man, it's gonna be like one of the last years I can watch her play.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of duty is it, like where his spirit's at, right?
And that's the type of thing that comes out when you know, share your personal life. But it's scary to share your personal life too.
Super.
Especially when, you know, I imagine like there's certain people in the industry that have, their idea of like crafting a rock star is a very specific certain thing.
Right.
And they're like, no, we have to keep you as mysterious and weird and all this other stuff. And he might be like, okay, well, yeah, I like doing rock and I like dressing weird, but I also like going to volleyball games with my daughter. And that's often more relatable than the mystery.
I think he like grew up in Egypt too or something. Like, doesn't he have like Christian missionary parents or something like that?
I know his mother's like a Viking or something like that. That's why you got all the blacks. I swear, man, like super. It's a crazy story. That's why you got all that black eye shit there too. It was crazy. He told me one night the full story, but I was really high. I was really. So I don't want to butcher that story completely.
When was the last time you tied one on? When was the last time you really went for it?
SNL.
Oh, really?
Of course.
Some late night.
You came out of a
So
burlesque
very
bar.
recently.
Came out of a burlesque bar at 8 o'clock in the morning with Post and MGK.
Wow.
Literally, the box or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you went.
Super awesome. Of course. Dude, listen, y'all. I'm from Antioch, Tennessee, dude. I played on Saturday Night Live. You know how fucking absurd that is?
Yeah.
Like, when you really start rapping, like, I tell people they know that I'm a criminal by my history and I talk about it openly, but if you just, like, seen it on a sheet of paper and then said, that guy played on Saturday Night Live, people are like, get the fuck out of here.
Dude, to that point, I listen to this sports station in Dallas. I always talk about it, but they said you performed at a cafe in a radio station. When I say cafe, I mean 2 vending machines, some small tables. I don't even know, like 99.5 The Wolf, I think, is there in